to Roseburg, Oregon. There's going to be a press conference updating on the investigation into the shooting at the college out there. See KPTV source on her Edge Live channel.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Mike Pace. Happy to be here with you. I am in for Samia today. She is out, so I will be with you this morning and into the afternoon. Hope everyone is doing well. We have a lot lined up for you, including happening right now a press conference in Roseburg, Oregon. We will take that right now. So good morning. Let me get you set up right here.
Was justified. I would like to provide the following details pertaining to the investigation. At 10:38 a.m., Douglas County Emergency Communications received the first 911 call that there was an active shooter at UCC. From witness statements and 911 calls, moments before, the shooter had entered the classroom and began shooting students. Detective Sergeant Joe Caney and Detective Todd Spingath from the Roseburg Police Department heard the dispatch call and responded from approximately 5 miles away. 2 troopers from the Oregon State Police Office in Roseburg also responded, and all 4 officers arrived on the campus at approximately 10:44 a.m. Upon arrival, the police officers heard a volley of shots. The police officers witnessed the shooter in the doorway of Snyder Hall. Sergeant Caney and Detective Spingath were in plain clothes. They were not wearing bulletproof vests as they got out of their vehicle. The police officers ran toward the sound of gunfire and attempted to gain a better vantage point on the shooter. Sergeant Caney and Detective Spingath knew that there were at least 35 students in one of the classrooms, and they knew that if they shot, they risked the chance of shooting innocent people. Sergeant Caney and Detective Spingath saw the shooter in the doorway of Snyder Hall. They saw it in the entrance of Snyder Hall, and they witnessed muzzle flash. The shooter shot several rounds at Detective Caney and Detective Spingath. Seconds later, both Sergeant Caney and Detective Spingath felt they had a good target. They fired a total of 3 rounds at the shooter. 2 rounds went into the entrance hall, at the entrance wall of Snyder Hall, near where the shooter was standing, and 1 round struck the shooter in the right side. Once the shooter was wounded, he entered the classroom again. He went to the front of the classroom, and he shot and killed himself. I want everyone to know of the selfless acts of these officers that they made in responding to this scene. They had little regard for their own personal safety, and they saved many, many lives that day with their heroic acts. Sergeant Caney and Detective Spingath used their training and discipline to determine the best time to take a shot at the shooter. And once the suspect engaged the police officers, he did not shoot another student. These men saved lives that day.
I'd like to introduce Chief Burge with the Roseburg Police Department.
Good morning. Before I share profile information about Sergeant Caney and Detective Spingath, I would like to express my gratitude to all the public safety personnel that responded to UCC. Without the response of the dedicated first responders, the magnitude of this event would have been multiplied. As police officers, we know that we could be required to put our lives on the line at any time to help protect those in need. The shooting at UCC showed what amazing character your police officers have and how they are willing to risk their lives for their community. Detective Sergeant Joe Caney is a former U.S. Marine and has been employed with the Roseburg Police Department for 23 years. Sergeant Caney received the Medal of Honor and Purple Heart in 2005 from the Oregon Peace Officers Association for a previous shooting incident in which he was shot and wounded in the ankle. Detective Todd Spingath is a United States Air Force veteran and has been employed with the Roseburg Police Department for 16 years. Detective Spingath is a recipient of the Medal of Valor for his actions during the same 2005 shooting incident. I am very proud of how Sergeant Caney and Detective Todd Spingath, as well as all the public safety organizations, responded and conducted themselves during this ordeal. I, like many other people in this community, consider them to be heroes. They knew that they could be injured or killed during this confrontation as they ran toward the sound of gunfire. I have spoken with both officers, and I can tell you they do not want to be heralded as heroes. They feel that they are only first responders who got there first and did a job they were trained and entrusted to do. Finally, Sergeant Caney and Detective Spingath ask that the focus of your attention be on the victims and families of this tragedy and not on them. They ask for privacy and the opportunity to settle back into their routine of providing public safety service to this community and its citizens. Thank you.
Questions?
Yes. So, how long was the exchange of gunfire between the gunman and the officers? What type of guns were involved, both from the gunman and the officers? And then finally, if you could help us just kind of understand where this is actually happening. So, was the gunman inside a classroom, and then did he emerge to confront the officers, or just kind of more specifically within the hall where this happened?
Sure.
Go ahead.
So the officers were shooting .40 caliber handguns. I believe the suspect was shooting a 9mm handgun. The shooter had emerged from Snyder Hall, so he was actually outside the classroom, but somewhat in the doorway. The police officers were coming toward Snyder Hall from the parking lot, so they are running toward. They're running toward Snyder Hall. The suspect is outside of Snyder Hall, and that's where as officers, as I said earlier, as they pull up, they're hearing a volley of shots. As they're getting out of the car, they're aware that they are the shots are actually being shot toward them, and that's when they exchange fire with the suspect.
Did the wound disable him? Stand in front of the microphone, please. Did the wound disable him? The shot from the police officer?
The wound that the officers yes, he was able to get back into the classroom, and he was able to take his own life. So, but from the standpoint of he would not have been able to go much further beyond that.
Was there any verbal communication between the officers and the suspect yet?
Not that I'm aware of.
Do you know how close they were when the gunfire took place between the two groups?
Approximately 15 yards.
Why were Sergeant Caney and Detective Spingath in plain clothes?
They're detectives. They're Detective Sergeant Caney and Detective Spingath. They are detectives, and so their normal attire is suits, and that's the significance. They didn't have bulletproof vests on. They anything. They're just in clothes. immediately they bailed out of their car and they went straight to the gunfire.
Can we have the 911 tapes with that?
I don't know if we're...
That's going to come at a different time when the investigation is over, and that'll have to go through the public records requests.
Someone who's talked to the detective, can you talk about the impact it's had on them? I mean, obviously, they live in this community. They obviously that's something a lot of people will remember for quite some time. Can you just talk about Chief and maybe just how they felt so far dealing with this?
You know, anytime you're involved in a use of force incident, for the officers, it's gut wrenching because you know you're going to be second guessed. I mean, you even start second guessing yourself. And right away, we try to reach out to those officers, especially in this case. In my opinion, after hearing the details, they had nothing to worry about. Regardless of the comfort I try to give them, they still worry about it. Up until the point that the DA reviews the case and then reveals his findings.
But their assessment was critical. The idea of getting a better area for the shot, just thinking about the other people who were involved. Talk about that from a tactic. Just as a chief, you have to be happy with the way they handled it.
Well, I can tell you as a chief, I'm very fortunate to allow those folks allow me to lead them. They are very competent. I have every confidence in the world that all of my officers would react the same way. They have planned and prepared for an active shooter event, and obviously their training has paid off.
And my last question, can you just describe them as men? Just how they are as officers on a day-to-day basis, how they interact with everybody else. Since they're not here, it gives a little strange.
Well, I think the fact that they aren't here and they want to get on with their job and their service to the community speaks volumes of their character and their dedication to the career field, the profession, and, again, this community.
Last question,
Can you discuss the competence of the gunman during this exchange? How accurate was he? It sounds like the officers had to hold back. They weren't wearing vests. What can you tell us about his abilities with his weapons?
The officers didn't hold back. They did not hold back. They assessed that there was a threat. They were under fire, and they ran toward it. They didn't hold back in it at all. They didn't hesitate. As far as his competence, I'm not quite sure
How
how
accurate of a shooter was he? They weren't wearing vests, so during when they confronted him,
what I can say was that they were aware that bullets were being shot toward them and at them. I mean, they were aware that physically that bullets were being shot toward them, and thank God they were not hit.
They don't want to be heroes.
Thank
Are
you.
they likely to be meeting
Thank
the
you.
president? Will they be among those invited to meet the president?
Can we ask the sheriff a question?
Not right now, no.
Will you release pictures of the detectives?
So the media line will still be open, and they will be answering the media line from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And you can also email for media requests at uccpublicinfo@gmail.com. That's uccpublicinfo@gmail.com. Thank you. I'm sorry. Thank you.
All right, well, there you go. That is the latest from the Oregon shooting investigation as the members of the police department and legal teams talking to the media there, just updating them on the situation there as their investigation does continue, as they heard from a lot of the survivors as well, and we're just going to be hearing more and more as the days and weeks come on. Just a sad story out there in Oregon, but I appreciate everybody watching so far today. We're going to catch you up on some headlines in just a little bit here, so be on the lookout for that. Baseball season, it is winding down, but it is now in the wild card phase, and if you watched yesterday, you saw that the Yankees, they went down. They didn't even put up a run against Houston. They get shut out at home 3-0. So Houston will be in a divisional game as well. And then today, we're going to have the Cubs and the Pirates square off for a one-game wild card spot. What do you think about that? Do you guys think that the Cubs can do it? Is this the year that they finally get it done? It's been over a century since the Cubs won a World Series. I don't think they're going to get it done, but it should be a good game, as their pitcher on the mound today has an ERA of .80 since the All-Star break. Looking forward to that game. Even if you're not a baseball fan, you got to love the competition. Got to check that out. Do want to check you up on some headlines here as we go on this beautiful Wednesday morning. What a difference from yesterday to today, right? What a difference. It was so rainy and a lot of people, this is what I don't get. A lot of people were telling me, oh, it's cold. I'm like, cold? Wasn't it like 75 degrees or 72? That's what I love about Arizona here, though. Once it dips real close to 70 or 68, people start getting nervous. They start saying things like, it's cold. You gotta love it. You really gotta love it. Okay, we're gonna go to some headlines here. My first one, great story. Love this story, actually. College student loses her ID. Who finds it? Oh, it's just an A-list celebrity. It's just Tom Hanks. Check out this story. Really fun here.
Wow.
You recognize her?
No. I don't know this girl.
I do not.
No.
No, I don't. Sorry.
No, I don't, but I saw her all over my Facebook.
At 12:02 p.m. Tuesday, Oscar-winning actor Tom Hanks tweeted an image of a Fordham University ID belonging to a woman named Lauren.
I don't know Lauren.
We do not know Lauren.
To Lauren, Hanks wrote, "Lauren, I found your student ID in the park. If you still need it, my office will get it to you." And so, from those not-so-humble beginnings, began the great Lauren search of Tuesday, October 6th.
I've never seen his face.
Online, offline, through channels both official and unsanctioned, the city sought a Lauren, knowing somewhere a Lauren sought a way to get into the library.
No, sorry.
No.
The Fordham Observer reported the ID belonged to a Lauren Whitmore, a member of the class of 2016 attending graduate school at Fordham's Lincoln Center campus.
If we see her, we'll let her know because this was really exciting.
But while a few gushed over her celebrity searcher, most of those at the graduate school knew nothing of this supposed Lauren. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about?
No idea.
Whether too studious,
I'm at the law school, so nobody's really talking about it that much.
Or too important.
I really can't, guys. I'm really sorry, or else I would.
Lauren Whitmore, this studious damsel, maybe in distress, maybe oblivious, or worse, indifferent to her loss, eluded us.
No. I do not.
No. Heard about it, though.
No. No.
I don't. Sorry.
All Fordham students to whom we spoke confirmed to exist in this environment without one's campus ID was not to exist at all.
Very important.
Why?
You need it at all times.
Yeah, or else you're screwed.
And when, after a day of searching, Lauren remained still hidden from the public, a topic of conversation, and sought by Tom Hanks, a few admitted to feelings of jealousy.
I wish I was her.
A Fordham spokesman reported the school reached out to Hanks to arrange the return of the ID, but the mystery Lauren did not wish to be interviewed. On the Upper West Side, I'm Matt King, Fox 5 News.
Doesn't want to be interviewed. Why not? That's awesome. Tom Hanks found your ID. He's going to give it back now. You don't want to be interviewed. Why? I don't get that. But that's an awesome story. It's a great little fun story. Who would have thought Tom Hanks picks up a girl's ID and then wants to give it back? Such a little nice heartwarming story there. But girl, you gotta interview. It's like, that's your time to shine. Love it. Next story. This one is very, very interesting and sad at the same time. A YouTube star and a death investigation. We never thought that would go hand in hand. Check it out.
Instant fame along with his sisters through YouTube. The family videos were called Bretele, and they had more than 1.3 million subscribers.
1, 2, 3.
Many of the family videos were shot at the family's home in Severna Park. They show typical conversations with the kids, but this family's private moments became very public and popular once they were posted on the internet. His death has now launched tributes on YouTube for him.
You were like a really funny and really inspiring person.
Caleb died last Thursday.
Are there any new sports?
This video, where he asks himself what he would say to his future self, was recorded the day before his death. His parents say Caleb died of natural causes. He was just 13. While Caleb and his family had a very public life due to YouTube, the family is now asking for privacy to deal with their grief. Kathleen Cairns, Fox 45 News.
What a story. All right, just getting word that Donald Trump is speaking, so we will now go to him.
Actually, the governor of Ohio is a quality guy, and he's doing a good job, but we're beating everybody by a lot in Ohio. So, I mean, I love what I see. We're having such a great time. We went on Meet the Press. It was very interesting. Anybody see it on Sunday? And Chuck Todd, who's a very good guy, but he asked me a question. Are there any reasons for which you'd get out? Is there any possible? I said, honestly, Chuck, I'm not a masochist. And I went through and I read something, and I said, I'm not, if I were doing badly, I guess I'd get out. I mean, if my polls went down to nothing, and if you guys weren't all calling, wanting interviews, because, you can always tell how you're doing because, like, the level of calling for these shows. And then they want to do, gotcha, constantly. You do 400 interviews. You answer one question a little bit. So he said, well, is there any way? I said, honestly, if I did terribly, and all of a sudden next day headlines, Trump may get out. In other words, he may. I said, I didn't say that. I said, in fact, my wife said, I'm not going anywhere. You better believe it. He knows Trump. You've got the same mentality, right? We're not going anywhere. But, I watched the politicians. They're at 1. I watched one of the politicians the other day. He's at 1. No chance. In fact, I think he's going down to 0. Would you get out? Absolutely not. We're in it to the end. Now, he's going to cancel out next week. But honestly, that's called politico speak. When you do that and when you talk that way, it's really easier because there's no story. So if he would have said, well, I'm thinking about it, I'm not doing well, of course, nobody would have written that story anyway because nobody cares. So politics is interesting, and I was never a politician before. For 3 months, I've been a politician. And, for 3 months, we've been number 1. They used to say, well, Michelle Bachmann, nice woman, Herman Cain, good guy, but they were there for a week. And you know all about Michelle Bachmann, right? She won your straw poll, which you don't have anymore, right? Tells you. But she's a very nice woman, and Herman's a great guy, but so they always say, well, they were there, but they were there for a week. We've been there for now 3 months, more than 3 months. So it's good. It's good. But we talk about political speak, and I went through this process because to me, it's very interesting. Politicians are all talk, no action. They don't get it done. And by the way, I am funding, as Sam told you, I'm funding my own campaign. I'm putting a fortune. I'm spending a lot of money. Not as much as I thought, because frankly, I'm getting so much publicity, I don't have to advertise so far, right? In fact, they did a piece in the Washington Post, and they said Trump has spent like $2 million, or whatever the number is that they used. But they said it's brilliant because he's leading and he spent less than anybody. That's like Charles O. Finley. Do you remember Charles Finley? The Oakland A's. He won the World Series like 3 times in a row, and he had the lowest payroll in baseball. Isn't that brilliant? To me, that's good. But to me, it's also maybe being a businessman. It's being a businessman. And if you're covered a lot, the last thing you want to do is now you see Trump is covered, bum, all over the programs, and then we put an ad in, right? Who the hell wants to see an ad? You OD on Trump. That's no good. I can't have that. But you call it politico speak, and honestly, I know it better than anybody because I've always been the fair-haired boy when it comes to politics because I was always a contributor. So I know the system, I know it well, and I was watching Jeb Bush, and Jeb Bush announced, he's a nice person, and he announced, and he is the mentor, as you know, of Marco Rubio, who's another nice person. And everybody said Marco will never run because he couldn't do that, it would be total disloyalty. And he would never run because Jeb Bush announced already that he was running. And they end up where Jeb runs, and then a few weeks later, Marco announces he's running. Everyone said, no, that can't be because it's loyalty. Well, first of all, politicians aren't loyal. You got to remember that. Okay. That was the only problem I had, thinking that maybe he, but loyalty. So loyalty's bad. And then you could see Jeb was very disturbed, but they went up to him. What do you think of Marco Rubio? Now, I would have said horrible things. I would have said he's a disloyal, that sounded like, right? I would have done that. And most of you would have done that, other than the politicians in the room. And you're all great politicians, by the way. Got a lot of them. This place is packed. But I would have said, I wasn't so happy, okay? But I saw Jeb, and he said, oh, I love Marco. He's a great guy. He's my friend. He's my dear, dear friend. I'm so happy he's in the race. And you can see he's seething underneath, right? And then they said to Marco, well, what do you think of Jeb? And he said, Jeb is my dear, dear friend. And I said to myself, this is political speak. That's why we're not getting anywhere, folks. We're not getting anywhere. It's not working. We need something that's much tougher, much stronger. You know, they did something today that was my daughter sent me a beautiful article. She was reading a book about Winston Churchill, Tough Cookie. And it was very interesting. And they said he couldn't get a position in government because they said his tone was tough. His tone. Well, he did just fine after that, right? But they thought, and I remember where actually Hillary and Jeb were saying very strongly, and you know, that they thought that my tone was very strong. It was very strong. I'm saying to myself, I have a strong tone. We have people's heads are being chopped off because they're Christian, and plenty of others, by the way. But people's heads are being chopped off. We're getting beaten at every front. We're losing to China on trade. We're losing to Mexico on trade and at the border. We're losing everywhere. I say I'm going to build a wall, and it's going to be a real wall, a big wall, a strong wall. Nobody's coming through unless it's legal. Nobody is coming through. Unless it's legal, nobody's coming through. But if legal, they're coming through. We're going to have a big, beautiful door, and they're going to come through, but they have to come through legally. Or we don't have a country, folks. Or we don't have a country. If we're going to put up with it, we're just not going to have a country. And, you know, and don't worry, I won't. Don't change, he said. I'm not going to change. It's going to be built. And, you know, it's interesting. So then the politician said, and if you look back 12 years ago, everybody wanted the wall. You know why they couldn't get it done? Environmental impact statements. They couldn't get the environmental impact statements, among other things, but they couldn't. But everybody, you look at all of the people running, and on the Democratic side too, take a look. Everybody thought it was a great idea. But they couldn't do it because they don't know how to build. The cost was too much. The wall was just a little thing, you know, where they drive trucks over. Do you see the picture in the paper? Where they put a ramp on each side and they drive drugs right over, back and forth. This truck, it's having a field day. It's just terrible. So they all said it won't happen. And they said, and then I made another statement. And I love Mexico, and I love the Mexican people. I have thousands and thousands, over my life, thousands of Mexicans and Hispanics. I'm doing great with Hispanics. Nobody knows it. A radio talk show host, a Hispanic radio talk show host said, you know, they love Trump. That's right, because the ones that are in the country legally love me. Because they don't want what's happening. They don't want to see what's happening. It's true. They don't want to see what's happening. So, and they want to see a wall, and they want to see what I'm saying. In Nevada, the state of Nevada, you probably saw the poll came down. I'm leading with Hispanics. I'm doing fine with Hispanics. I'm doing great. And once they know and really hear my platform where we're going to bring jobs back from China, from Japan, from all these countries, believe me, we're going to do something. Numbers are going to be phenomenal. We had a poll with the African Americans where I was at 25%. That's a huge number for a Republican primary. It's, I think they said, the biggest number they've ever seen. And somebody said, if you actually got 25% of the African American vote, the election's over. It's over. You win. It's over immediately. So we're doing well, and we're going to continue to do well. I look at what's going on with the country. I look at how we're being taken advantage of in so many different ways. You know, we came up the other day, you saw, with a tax plan that really has been well received. And we're lowering it big league for middle income. We're lowering it big league because the middle income, it's like forgotten. They're like our vets. Our vets have been forgotten. They have been forgotten. And we're going to take care of our vets. We're going to build our military bigger, better, stronger than ever before. Ever before. Ever. And that doesn't mean we're going to use it. In fact, the stronger we get, the more likely it is that we won't have to use it. Right now, it's true. We don't want to use it. We don't want to have to go to wars. You know, I've taken a very different position on Syria. So we've got $2 trillion in Iraq. We lost thousands of soldiers, thousands, over 5,000. We have wounded warriors all over the place who I love, who we all love. I mean, they're wounded warriors. They're braver than all of us. These are incredible people. We have nothing. We have nothing. Right now, Iran is talking to Iraq. They're going to take it over. In fact, Russia's now talking to Iraq. They're going to do some bombing of ISIS, which, frankly, I think is a great thing. Let Russia bomb ISIS. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? They want to bomb them. Let them bomb them. Bomb the hell out of them. No, bomb them. But, and I said that, and somebody said, oh, that's controversial. A couple of the countries said, no, we will not speak to Russia. We will not talk to Russia. And we will go and confront Russia. What, over Syria? We're going to start World War III, right? Give me a break. We'll know when to play games, folks. We'll know when to play games. This isn't the time. And by the way, now Russia is, you know, when I first made the statement, they were hitting our so-called allies that we have no idea who they are. You know, you have Assad. He's a bad guy. And we're fighting for people. We have no idea who they are. You know, a general, I spoke to him 3-4 days ago, good guy, knows that area very well. I said, what do you think of the allies? You know, we call them the allies. They're called the rebels, Free Syrian rebels. What do you know? I said, we know nothing about them. He said, they could be ISIS. We have no idea. So we're going to spend billions of dollars, all of this money, get into another quagmire. Watch, Russia will be in a quagmire. If you remember, Russia, when it was the Soviet Union, big, they went bankrupt. They went bankrupt over Afghanistan. Right? They went back. They were there. They thought it was going to be like a 2-day deal, and it turned out to be a quagmire. Syria is a quagmire. And then you hear, we're going to take in, so originally I heard 3,000 people from Syria, right? We're going to take in 3,000 people. I said, you know what? They asked me on one of the shows, what do you think, Mr. Trump? I said, well, you know, couldn't somebody else do it? Like, we're always doing it. Couldn't somebody else maybe do it for a change? But you know what, 3,000, I guess it's okay. You know, from a humanitarian standpoint, you look, it's terrible. And then the next time I was on television, it was 10,000. And I said, I guess, do it. Then, you're right, mobilize now is right. Then, the next time, I'm sitting down, listen to this. The next time, thank you. Oh, I thought they were on our side. That's all right. Don't worry. Don't hurt them. Don't hurt them. Nonviolence. Nonviolence. We want to be nonviolent with those people. We want to be nonviolent with those people. That's okay. That's all right. So what happens is the next time I hear, we're taking in 200,000. They want to take in 200,000. Okay? 200,000. And you look at the reports, it's going to cost billions of dollars. You know, we owe $1.9 trillion. We owe $1.5 trillion to China, $1.5 trillion to Japan. Think of it. We owe think of it. We owe 19. It's impossible for us to survive as a country if we keep being stupid. We're not going to have a country left. We're not going to have a country left. So... And thank you for not hurting those people. I thought it was, you really behaved well. Look at the size of this guy. You were so nice. They are so lucky you were so nice. Thank you very much. That's good. Nonviolent. Every once in a while we talk about nonviolence, right? You're surprised to hear that from Trump, aren't you? But we have now, so we have 19 trillion in debt. We have to get rid of it. We have to start at least knocking the heck out of it. And to bring these 200,000 people in, 200,000, that's like an army. Maybe that's it. Because I look and I see the migration, which is sad. But then I look and I keep looking. I said to my wife the other day, I said, you know, I don't see too many women there. I don't see that many children. I see really strong-looking men. I mean, they look like Dan Gable, okay? And even younger. But I see all these young, strong men. And I'm saying that's a strange migration because they're all men. So then I said, I wonder why they're not fighting for their country, number one. And then you see what's going on in Germany, where they're having tremendous problems with what's happening with their women, with these people, and what's happening. And you're reading the stories. I hate to even repeat what's going on. So now they want to talk about 200,000. I'm looking at all these men. We're going to bring them into our country. We know nothing about them. They're not documented. They can't give you papers. They don't know anything. We know nothing. This could be one of the great Trojan horses. This could make the Trojan horse look like peanuts, okay? Now, is that the case? Probably not, but the word probably is not acceptable. It's not acceptable. Probably not. It's probably not the case. But you know what? Why are we taking chances? We're going to spend billions of dollars over a 10-year period. They say it costs billions. And you know, I actually said to one, and I've said it very strongly, because if I'm president, and if I win and I become president, they are going back. They're going back. They're going back. They're going back. And one of the talking heads on one of the programs, you know, these talking heads, they get paid a lot of money. They don't know what they're doing. Don't forget, they're the ones that said, he'll never run. Then they'll say, he never files his financial. He won't do it because maybe he's not as rich as people think. And it turned out I'm much richer. I did file them, and I filed them on time. It turned out they said, oh. Then they're saying all sorts of things. Well, he won't last long. So when I started, I went to 8, and they said, he plateaued. Then the next week, I went to 16, right? And they said, oh, well, but that's a plateau. Then I went to 20 to 24. I mean, we had a poll today. I think it's 35 or 34. It's crazy. I want a plateau now. I'm satisfied. Hey, you know what? We want a plateau. But, you know, you look at it, and you look at the thinking that we have, and the thinking that we have going on in the country, and what's happening, and we have to run this country with heart, with tremendous heart, with tremendous heart. We're going to repeal Obamacare and replace it with something much better, much better, much better. I don't know. I guess you people know very well. You see your premiums are going up 25, 35, right? Right? They're going up 35%. One person was on the other day, 51% increase in premiums. Your deductibles, forget it. You might as well, you're going to be dead by the time you can pick up. The deductibles are so high, they're unacceptable. So you really don't even have insurance, if you think about it. We're going to repeal it. We're going to replace it with something great. We're going to get rid of the boundaries. You know, I have thousands of employees in different states. If I go to one state, I can't really go outside of the boundaries. You know, they have an artificial line. We're going to take care. So, you know, it's sort of interesting. We're building a wall at the border, but for insurance purposes, we're taking those walls down. Because what it means, I never actually thought of that before, but we're going to do the opposite. But what it means, you don't get bids. I get like one bid. And they say, take it or leave it. Oh, we'll take it. You get no bids. You get no bids. You feel like a jerk. And what happens is when those artificial lines wrapped around New York State, and you know who's making a fortune with Obamacare? The insurance companies. They're making a fortune. Now, they would rather have that than have where they can bid on all 50 states. They can bid on 50 states and beyond 50 states. They can go anywhere. They would much rather have a monopoly in Iowa. They'd much rather have a monopoly in New York or South Carolina. I was in New Hampshire the other day. They want a monopoly there. Than have the right to bid where you have 20 people, 20, 40. The only thing the government should be involved with there is the strength of the company. Because we want to know if there's a catastrophe, if there's a catastrophic event, if there's some bad times, that they are strong. Other than that, we don't want any involvement. We don't want any involvement. And you'll be able to have your doctor. Don't forget the 28 lies. 28 times President Obama said, you can have your doctor, you can keep your plan, you can do everything. It's a disaster. It's very unfair. And I actually said, why aren't you suing the country? Because Obamacare was a total fraud. The one bad thing, you know, as bad as it is, everybody knows what I'm talking about. Whose premiums have gone up? Everybody? Yeah, everybody. So everyone knows what I'm talking about. And I said, why isn't somebody suing? It's a fraud. Because it was sold based on a fraud. And even the Democrats, they don't want any part of it. They were sold. They were even convinced. Some of these senators and all that had a vote, they were convinced that, you know, all of these things would happen. It was a total fraud. Turned out to be. Remember the guy who did the plan? He turned out to be a liar, and he went to the class, and he was bragging about how stupid the American people are. Everybody forget. What was his name? Remember? Correct. And everybody was talking about it. Well, that was about a month. That wouldn't lasted a month because there was great anger. But now nobody remembers him. But he was telling everybody, you know, what a bunch of dopes the Americans are. He was actually saying it, that he pulled the sheets over their eyes, and he bragged. Unfortunately, somebody was taping his conversation. You know, that's a killer. That's a killer. But, you know, for some reason, we have so many other problems, if you look, that we've forgotten about that. We've forgotten a little bit about Obamacare, how bad it is. But you're not going to forget soon because you see what's happening with your premiums. And when you get to 16, the next president has to be great. Thank you very much. No. Thank you. The next president has to be great because in 16, Obamacare just kicks in. You know, it's funny. They gave me a review on my speaking ability the other day, and they gave me great marks, really great. In fact, I said maybe I should do this in charge and do it professionally. No, they gave me great marks, but you know what they said? His one mistake is he speaks through the applause. In other words, people are applauding, and I speak through. You know why? Because I'm so excited about talking about this stuff. Because, you know, I don't want to wait for the applause. Does that make sense? And the other thing, you know, I was a good student. I went to a great school and all that stuff. But the other thing, they said, sometimes he won't complete a sentence, meaning, you know, I'll stop. Because I know my audience, they're smart. I don't have to, I like finish 80%, and then I just want to get on to the next sentence because you know what the other 20% is going to be. I don't want to waste time. It's true. It's true. But they gave me these great marks, and they said he speaks through the applause. So now what I did the other time, we had an amazing day in Tennessee last week. We had a tremendous, we always have tremendous crowds. Hey, in Dallas, we had 20,000 people in the Mavericks Arena where they play. And we had 20,000 people. Mark Cuban, he was terrific. He said, you want to use it? And we had a few days to fill it up. In Mobile, Alabama, we had 35,000 people. In Oklahoma, we had 20,000 people at a band shell. It was incredible. I mean, it was incredible. And it's fun to speak because a friend of mine last night, he said, are you at all nervous? I said, you know what, it's funny. You don't get nervous. Even though I have all these live television cameras, you know, they have trucks outside. Everything's live. My speeches are always live. I'd say, why don't you let me do some non-live so I can repeat it a little bit? You know, it's tough when you're in television. You can't even repeat the same speech. But he said to me, do you ever get nervous? I said, you know, it's funny. There's such love in the room, every room. There's such love. It's sort of like a happening experience. It's a crazy thing. You don't really get nervous. There's nothing to be nervous about. We're all on the same side. And there's a great feeling in these rooms, not only here, but if I go to any other place. I mean, in Dallas, 20,000 people. I'm sitting there with a little thing like this. And I'm saying, it's like there's nothing to be nervous. Everybody is going crazy. They're applauding. Because you're saying, you know, they called it the silent majority, and people hit me for that. Oh, that's not nice, because that represented something years ago having to do with Nixon, frankly, and they were saying, oh, that's not nice using the word silent majority. And I said, but, you know, it's such a descriptive term because we do have a silent majority. But then I said to myself, it's not really silent. It's really not. I mean, you see yourselves, it's not a silent majority. It's really a very, very aggressive, noisy society now. It's not even a good term to use, silent majority, because it really is a society that wants results. We want to make great deals. We want smart thinking. We want smart thinking. We have people in office that are being nice, incompetent, being less nice, they're stupid people, or they have another agenda. Now, I don't even think it's the other agenda. I mean, a lot of people in this room say there's another agenda because it can't be that. You know why? You say nobody can be that stupid, so it has to be another agenda. And a lot of you people would disagree. You'll say, oh, well, it is another agenda. I think they're stupid people, honestly. No, honestly. I really do. I just don't think they know what they're doing. I think our leader doesn't have a clue as to what's going on. I mean, when you look at the nuclear deal with Iran, I mean, give me a break. Look at the nuclear deal with Iran. You take a look at that deal, and you say, wait a minute, they have 24 days. But remember, the 24 days doesn't start until a whole process, so it's much more than 24 days. Got to get a process, got to make all sorts of statements. So you got 24 days. Then you have another just to inspect. Okay? See, there was a case where I left the sentence off because I know everyone knows to inspect, so what do I have to say it for, right? Right? So I like my old way better because I don't have to finish that because everyone knows, right? So you have the 24 days. Now they have a new thing that just came out, and that's self-inspection. They're allowed to do self-inspection. Okay, Iran. So you have a guy saying death to America, death to America. We have people signing. We have a guy who's on a bicycle in a bicycle race, and he's our chief negotiator, breaks his leg, walks in with crutches. They say, what a jerk this guy is. But we give them back think of it. We give them back $150 billion. So now they're in Syria with soldiers because they have so much money. 150 for them is a lot. For us, we waste that in 2 deals. No, it's true. But $150 billion, that's a lot of money. So they're going to be a world terror. They're going to be a real world terror. They're going to have nuclear weapons because after the 10 years, they're not going to wait that long. But after 10 years, everyone agrees it's really going to be open season. And they're going to have a lot of things. Our prisoners, so one of the things, look, nuclear is so important. My uncle was a really great, brilliant guy. He taught up at MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He told me years ago, the power of what will be nuclear is going to be so devastating. And he's right. He was so right. It was a long time ago he told me that. So right. But you look and you say, okay, this maybe isn't the most important, but it's important psychologically. We have 4 prisoners, right? Now, we have 4 prisoners. It was 3. Since then, it's 4. But when this whole thing started, they've been negotiating this thing for years. Any deal takes that long to negotiate, and we gave up on every single point. It's no good, but it takes years. This could have taken a week. Somebody said, how long? 1 day. But give it a week. We've been negotiating this thing for years, and ultimately we kept walking away. We never walked away. We walk away from the points. We say, okay, you can have it. Here's us. Okay. Could we have this? No, absolutely not. Okay. This is us. We didn't win anything. We didn't win anything. Like a bunch of really dumb people, we didn't win anything. But you have the 4 prisoners, was 3, now it's 4. And at the beginning, not at the end, they should have said, listen, before we start the negotiation, we want our prisoners back. Not going to help you. You don't need them. We need them. We have a minister. We have a pastor. We have we have wonderful people there. They shouldn't be there. In the worst prisons, they say the worst prisons, we have wonderful people. And we should have said, we want our people back. Now, Kerry said he didn't want to complicate the negotiation. Think of it. Think of it. All you have to do is say, folks, before we start, here's me. Who would be better at this, me or them? Huh? And you go, the beginning, right? I'd say, first thing, good afternoon. Maybe I wouldn't say that because it's just a waste. Honestly, it's a waste of time. You ever see these guys, they walk in, oh, it's beautiful weather. Isn't it, Donald? Beautiful out. Raining. Oh, it's raining. How the Yankees doing tonight? Who cares, right? Who cares? We want to get to business. So the first thing you say is very simple. Fellas, we want, all fellas, by the way, I hate to say to the women, they haven't figured out that women are smarter than men. They haven't figured. It's going to take them another 150 years. And 150 years from now, they'll be doing it really right. But they are. The Persians, great negotiators. Great negotiators. The Iranians are great negotiators. Great. Always been known for it. I don't know, why somebody would say, oh, that's not politically correct to say that. It just sort of happens, it's okay. But they're great negotiators. You say at the beginning, fellas, we want our prisoners back. You got to do it. Before we start, we want our prisoners back. Now, if you had the right messenger, immediately they'll say, okay. If they didn't say okay, what you do is you get up and walk, you double up the sanctions, and they'll call you, I guarantee, probably within 24 hours, but certainly within a week or 2, and you get your prisoners back. That's the end of that, okay? But they didn't even ask for the prisoners. So now, 2 days ago, I'm reading the paper, and I see what they want. They're now willing to open negotiations. We just gave them everything and $150 billion. Now they're willing to open negotiations for our prisoners. But they want 19 prisoners that we have. And they want other things. And the statement was, we want 19 prisoners and we want many other things. Oh, how stupid are our people. It's so embarrassing. They want, now, I'm looking at one man, he's ready to faint up here because of this. He can't take it. Is that right? Look at him. Oh, he's got a Donald Trump shirt on. I love this guy. He says, you're fired. I love this guy. No, he's taking it. You got to see as I'm talking, he's going, oh. And he's not at all faint. He's a strong cookie. I look at him. I don't want to fight him. But it's just driving him crazy because he can't understand it. Neither can I. The incompetence of it all. So they want now, supposedly, 19 prisoners. I'm not surprised. They want 19 prisoners and other things. I'm watching 60 Minutes, and I'm watching some of the shows, and I watched their chief negotiator about a month ago. And I watched him. I said, man, he's too smart for our people. He's too smart for Kerry. He's too smart. He's too sharp. He was sharp. And they said, what do you think? Will you get along with America? He goes, well, America has got to come a long way before we agree to get along. America will come a long way. And if they behave, and if they do what's right. In other words, ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. I just see this guy. And I'm saying, we don't have the people. But I have the people. Oh, do I? Oh. I have Carl Icahn. You know Carl. I have the biggest, smartest guys. I have guys, I'll put them in charge of China. Carl, do me a favor. Watch over the China trade deal. I will tell you right now. Just go back to your homes. Relax. We were going to do very well. Okay? Very well. I have guys that are so great. I have the greatest negotiators. I know all of them. I mean, most of them. I know them from New York, from Wall Street. You know, we put political hacks in those positions. We put Carolyn Kennedy in that position. Japan, Carolyn Kennedy. I see them whining and dining on 60 Minutes. I was on 60 Minutes the other day. Anybody see me? That was their highest rated show. I was on with Putin. We looked very nicely together, right? Very nice. I was on with Putin. It was Trump and Putin. I don't know who got the ratings. One of us did because it was the highest rated show they've had in a long time. But I watched Carolyn Kennedy, and I see that Abe, who's the boss of Japan. You know, Abe, I don't know if you know, Japan is back. They're doing this monetary manipulation, their currency manipulation, big league. They were the kings. Now China makes them look like small time. Okay? But Japan is really back. And I see them whining and dining, Carolyn. That's not for her. That's not for her. Because her position over there, the ambassador, that's a very important position, especially with Japan and a couple of countries. You know, in certain countries, more important. She doesn't know anything about negotiation. And I see them whining and dining her state dinners. She's going to give up everything. I go to Los Angeles a few weeks ago. I see the biggest ships I've ever seen with cars coming in from Japan. Massive amounts of cars. And they're coming in like it's a Long Island Expressway off the phew. I'm going, wow, look at all those cars. And we sell beef. Some comes from Iowa. But you know what happens. They send it back, right? They send it back a lot of times. And sending beef back and forth doesn't work too well, right? I don't know too much about beef, but I know that. Not so good. It's called perishable. But they send it back. You know why? Because their farmers don't want our beef. So they're farmers, and they're very nationalistic. They don't want our beef. So it goes back and forth. But we, in the meantime, so we have, I said this the other day to my people, I want to get U.S. trade balance. I want to see, what do we make with China? Or what do we lose with China? And Japan and Mexico. I did the three countries. So I did Mexico first, because I wanted to see, because everyone says, you can't have politicians, right? How ridiculous. That wall will cost $7 billion, $10 billion. By the way, anything it costs, I could do it for 50%. It'll be twice as big and much more beautiful, okay? Anything. But I watch these politicians. A couple of them said to me today, because Rubio is very weak on immigration, very weak on illegal immigration. Bush is very weak. He said, remember, they come as an act of love, right? They're coming over. In the meantime, they're killing people. You know, sure, act of love. Act of love. Oh, this thinking. We got to get rid of these politicians, folks. We got to. So I said, what's the trade balance? How are we doing with Mexico? And the number was $45 billion a year we lose. $45 billion. We have and that doesn't include all the illegal drugs that come in, which is a much bigger number. That's probably bigger than the 45. And those drugs they go all over the place. Chicago, New York, all over. Los Angeles. You know, the liberals in Los Angeles love me. They all say, we want to vote for you because we're getting overrun by the illegals. You know, 50% of the new driver's licenses in Los Angeles are given to illegals. They're getting better treatment than our vets. Think of it. So I have guys that are heads of movie companies, and these are very liberal people. You know, these are the people that we read about. They're always endorsing, like Obama. You know, then they don't get invited to the White House to sleep there, and they're angry at him. You know, that's 90% of it. But these are people that aren't big for the Republican world, right? And they're all telling me, Don, they love you in L.A. They're all voting for you. Now, don't tell anyone I said that. But they're all voting for me. They're going to vote for me because they know what's happening. And they have a hard time with it psychologically, but they know what's happening. So Mexico, $45 billion a year. You mean to tell me I can't take $7 billion and build a wall? I know I can. In addition, we give Mexico billions of dollars. Billions of dollars. But the politicians say, like I'm some kind of a baby, you can't ask for that. How ridiculous. Why would Mexico ever think of paying $7 billion to build a wall? And I say, because they're making $45 billion a year, you idiot. It's unbelievable. No, it's unbelievable. So I said Mexico, $45 billion a year, okay? Trade imbalance, $45 billion a year. And by the way, Nabisco moving to, you heard about that. Nabisco leaving. I love Chicago. I love Chicago. By the way, toughest gun laws in the world, Chicago. And people are shooting themselves all over the place, okay? So when these people want to take away your Second Amendment rights, believe me, just refer them to Chicago. Refer them to some of these places. I'm a big Second Amendment person, believe me, the biggest. But no, when they want to do that, just refer them in. So, okay. So Mexico, $45 billion. Then I say Japan, the cars. How much? Trade imbalance. Almost $60 billion a year. Then I say, okay, this is the one I didn't want to hear. Give me China. Give me China. They come back, and these are great numbers. These are accurate numbers. Almost $400 billion a year in balance. In balance. How do we have? Now, they're taking our jobs. They're taking our money. They're taking our base. And we owe them $1.5 trillion. How does that work? That's like, I always say it's like a magic act. It's like a great magic act. We owe them $1.5 trillion. And they're taking our jobs, our money, everything. They're taking hundreds of thousands of jobs out of Iowa and other places. They're taking it. Now, I have China. They're tenants of mine in my buildings in New York. I have the biggest bank in the world. They're great people. From China. One of the biggest bank. By the way, a bank that makes Citibank look like a speck of dust. It's so big. I think they have 400 million customers. Think of that. It's the biggest in the world. They're my tenant. And I say, the lease is coming due. And they come, we want to renew the lease. I say, really? You know, who speaks? Look, because they respect what I'm saying, because they know I'm right. In a magazine, they had a thing, what do the Chinese most want? And one of the top 10 things that they most want, one of the 10 things was anything Trump. You believe it? And because they respect me. It's just respect. It's respect. So we have an imbalance with China of almost $400 billion a year. Now, if I can straighten out that one deal, our country's in great shape. I mean, I don't even have to worry about Japan, Mexico. I can just do China. It's so big. It's so big. It's so great. They have created, and I said this to another group, and they actually agreed with me, and these are very pro-China. And so am I. I get along great with the Chinese. Hey, look, they give me $25 and $50 million to buy apartments from me. Am I going to dislike them? No. No, I'm not. I mean, I have a great relationship. The funny thing is the United States does not have a good relationship with China, right? So we fight in Afghanistan, and Afghanistan has great mineral wealth. People didn't know that. Great mineral wealth. And you have tremendous mountains in Afghanistan. Ridges, mountains. And we're over here fighting. And on the other side of the big mountain, China is over there with excavators taking out the minerals. We're fighting. They're taking out the minerals. Who is the biggest purchaser of Iraqi oil? The biggest purchaser is China. Now, we spend our $2 trillion, our lives, our wounded warriors. The biggest purchaser is China. Look, I take my hat off. I'm not angry at them. I'm angry at our leaders. I'm angry at our leaders for not knowing what's happening. And I'll tell you something. I will bring that down to a point where you'll be very happy, and maybe we'll even make something. And even if we broke even, do you know the difference in our country if we could just be like even? And it's so easy to do. They manipulate their currency. They make it impossible for you folks and businesses to compete. They, by the way, charge taxes all over the place if you're going to send your product in there. We don't. We don't. You know, people talk about free trade. That's not free trade. That's dumb trade. It's dumb trade for us. I'm a free trader. But you need to have people that can represent us properly. I believe in free trade. And all we have to do is say, listen, if you don't bring your currencies up, if you stop it, because they just did a manipulation, the biggest in the last 2 decades. You read about it 2 weeks ago. Headline. Nobody does anything about it. They devalued their currency the most that they've done, and they've been doing it for a lot. But the last one was a big, because they figure that what we have is we have people and politicians, meaning our leaders, politicians, that are so inundated with other problems between Syria and the Iran deal, which we can't do, and so many other deals, that they've seen this and they are so inundated with so many that we'll be able to devalue the most we've done in 2 decades. 2 decades, that's 20 years. That's after killing us for the last long period of time. That we'll do it and we'll get away with it. And they got away with it. In fact, it wasn't even that big a story. But it means you can't compete. And all we have to do is say, fellas, look, here's the story. We're going to charge you tax coming into the United States. I don't think they'll ever pay it, by the way, because I think they'll behave. But we're going to charge you about a 32% tax coming in. And that's peanuts. We're being very nice at 32%, because what they've done is far greater than 32%. But all of a sudden, I have a friend from China who bought an airplane. In the United States. He can't get it back to China. I said, why? Because the tax is so big that I refuse to pay it. Now, you don't know that. You don't hear these stories. But with China, we don't charge them anything because we have people that don't have a clue. So with my people, believe me, I have the best. I have the best. You know, I always say, not all of them are nice. Do we care if they're nice? Do we really care? I say it all the time. Some of them are horrible, miserable, beautiful people. You know why they're beautiful? They're beautiful because they're going to do a beautiful job for us, because that's what they do. They're great. They're the best in the world. We have the best negotiators in the world. We have better negotiators than the Persians. We have we have the best in the world, but we don't use them. We use political hacks. We use people that gave campaign contributions, and they get a job in government because they want to work in government. We have people that become ambassadors that shouldn't be ambassadors. And other countries say, wow, this guy really doesn't have a clue. Never been to these countries, doesn't know anything. And these are the people we have. And the nice part is, and I don't know if it's worth it, because it's something that, you know, I'm not used to this. I'm being offered millions and millions of dollars to run. You know, I'm in number 1 position. When you're in number 1 position, man, you wouldn't believe the money could flow in. I don't take it. I sort of feel like maybe I'm as stupid as the people representing us. It's so foreign to me. No, I don't want it. I don't want it. I mean, I have people, I mean, we take the little tiny women sending in $7, $8, $100, $200. We take little contributions, because how do you send it back? They want to invest in the campaign, and it's a great thing. And if you sent it back, oh, I'm sorry, we're not taking your $7. We're not taking your $322. You know, you can't do it. But so it's little stuff. And I want them. I love those, because that's an investment. That's like somebody proud of the country. But we're not taking the contributions. We're not taking contributions of millions, $5 million from a lobbyist, $2.5 million from these special donors and special interests. And everybody that puts up that money wants something for it. And it's not good for the United States. It's not good for the country. So I'm self-funding. I'm the only one that's self-funding. You know, when you look at Hillary and Jeb and Marco and all of the people, they're all taking tremendous amounts of money. I mean, I had a case. It was a very bad thing. Club for Growth. You know who the growth is? Their wallet. That's the growth. Club for Growth. This group, they say, oh, we're a conservative group. They come up to see me in my office. The guy asked me for $1 million. I said, I never even heard of him. He wants $1 million. I don't mind. I can give him $1 million. But I never heard of the guy. So he comes up. They want $1 million for Club for Growth, a conservative organization. So I'm conservative. I said, well, that's fine. But, you know, and I get it in writing to show you how stupid they are. He puts it in writing, writes me a letter. We'd like him in. We turned him down. They did negative ads on me in Iowa. Do you believe? Did anybody see the ads? They were actually good ads for me. I looked good. You know, I was younger. I really looked. I actually said, I wish I could look like that again. Wow. I didn't realize I was that good looking. No, they gave you these great ads. They said I raised taxes. You know, my tax plan is cutting the hell out of taxes. In fact, if there was any criticism, it was that I cut taxes too much. But they said I raised taxes. I raised taxes. You know, they came up with all nonsense. And I don't know, I spoke with Chuck, I spoke to my people. They say nobody even talks about it. But think of it. They come to your office, you say very nicely, no. All of a sudden, they come out with a vicious letter they're against Trump. I guarantee you one thing. If I gave them $1 million, there's no ads, there's no nothing. So a lot of cases, you know, when you watch television, and they have $300, $400 million out there, all of them, not Club for Growth. I think I've really crippled them. I've really hurt them badly. They have been hurt very badly. They have been hurt very badly. In fact, I'm doing a book because Simon & Schuster, great company, came to me. They want me to do a book. You believe this? So I said, I'll do it. And they made a big payment. I'm going to give it to charity, all of it. Big payment, a lot of money. I mean, I feel stupid not doing it, if you want to know the truth. The last thing I wanted to do is a book. But I called the book. You know what it's called? I was going to say, the Make America Great Again book. It's too nice because our country's in trouble. Then I was going to say, Greatness in America. And I said, it's too nice. Then I had a photographer come up, and I said, do you think I should be smiling? And took this beautiful smile, and there was one picture that was just mean. I think he got me in it was a horrible, horrible, mean picture. Like a nasty-looking guy, no smum. I'm like this. And then I said, you know, I read something, and it was so bad. I said, we're going to call it Crippled America, because that's what it is. It's Crippled America. And we're going to call the book. And I thought I'd have some, you know, Simon & Schuster, big deal, right? The best, the Rolls Royce of the books. And I said, you know, I think they probably won't allow that title to be used because it's a tough title, nasty title. And we're going to call it Crippled America. It's going to come out in 3 or 4 weeks. I'm so proud of it. I worked so hard on it. With everything else, I'm writing books. This was the last thing. But it was a lot of money that's going to go to charity. And frankly, I think the title is amazing. And I used that horrible picture of me. It's a horrible picture. And I talk about our country. I talk about the problems. I talk about the solutions. But you know, the biggest solution is really smart people. That's really, if you get right down, because there's so many things, whether it's trade or military or this or that, there's so many different things. The borders. You know, Dwight Eisenhower was a good man, right? Everybody liked him. You know, they did a big operation years ago, big operation where they moved people out that were here illegally. And it didn't work because they were moving them right over the border, and they kept coming back, and then you know what happened? They moved them all the way down south, hundreds and hundreds of miles away. Nobody ever came back. And nobody said Dwight Eisenhower was a bad person. He was a great humanitarian. He was a great general. But he was our president, and they did it. But we don't do things like that. Today we have Sergeant Bergdahl, a traitor, right? Bergdahl. So Bergdahl, today, Bergdahl was a traitor. 6 people died going after him. He left. He was a traitor. 6 people died going after him. Died. Killed. Young, incredible kids. Unbelievable people. Young people. 6 of them died. Now they get Bergdahl, and what do? They trade one traitor for the 5 guys that they most wanted for the last 10 years. Right? They got the 5 guys, and this is the way we negotiate. And then the other day, I'm hearing, you know, normally, hey, 25 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, you do what he did, it's bing, and it goes quickly, right? It's called, you're dead. Treason. It's treason. You don't even hear that word. It's treason. So what do we do with Bergdahl? The other day I'm hearing, well, it's unlikely he'll serve any jail time. You know, he wasn't feeling so good. Can you believe this? Can you believe this? Here's a guy who was a traitor, where 6 people were killed looking for him. And don't kid yourself, a general and a colonel went to interview the people, the young men and women in his group. And they all knew before they made the deal that he was a traitor. You know, that wasn't like, oh, they made a mistake. I could almost understand that. We made a mistake. I wish we didn't do it. They knew that he left. So why would they make a deal like that? Why would they do it? So they're getting 5 people that they most wanted. We get this guy, and the other day I'm hearing that he probably won't even have to serve jail time. Our country is in serious, serious trouble. And I can only say this, if I get elected president, you are going to be, no, I know, I hear that a lot. I'll say if, because honestly, look, I'm running against a lot of different people, and who knows what happens. But, so I have to say if. And I'd like to say when, but I don't want to be too braggadocious. Does that make sense? No. But look, you do. I mean, we have a long way to go. We have actually only 4 months now. Think of it, 4 months until we hit that big day, that special day that, you know where that starts? Right here. Right here. It starts right here. But if I get elected president, I will tell you that you folks, you're going to remember this day, but you folks are going to be so proud of our country. We are going to have so many victories. We're not going to have defeats anymore. We're going to have so many victories. We're going to be run really smartly. We are going to have a country that you're going to be so proud of. We're going to take this country back. And we have something that's amazing. We have the people. I see the people. I see it everywhere I go. The people are so incredible. So we're going to take this country back. We're going to make America great again. And I say it now, and I've been saying it for the last week, and I see it. I know we can do it. We're going to take it. We're going to make it better than ever before. We can do that. Better than ever before. So I just want to thank all of the people in Iowa. We're doing great here. We thank you. I love you too. But we're doing so great in Iowa, and I just want to thank all of the people. And I'll be here a lot over the next 4 months and beyond, by the way, and beyond. And we're going to do something really, it's going to be a beautiful thing to watch. And it's been a beautiful thing to watch because there is a movement going on. This is not just like people getting together. This is a big movement that's going on all over the country, and you know what it represents. We're getting the biggest crowds, the greatest people. I just want to thank everybody, and I will see you soon. I'll be back very soon. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, everybody. So that was Donald Trump speaking in Iowa. He spoke for a good amount of time, and we were able to bring that to you live in its entirety thanks to the power of News Now. So we appreciate everybody watching. Want to keep you going on some headlines here, and this one made our headline actually on the YouTube page here that got you watching this afternoon. Can you believe this story? A mom was sent to a pet area to breastfeed. You don't get it? Take a look at this story. You're not gonna believe it.
It all started with a tweet, #fail. Liz Cooper saying, who tells a woman to pump where animals go to the bathroom? Cooper says she approached a United Airlines employee looking for a private place to pump milk for her son Camden.
And she said, you can go to the bathroom. And I said, the bathroom is not sanitary.
But this was the suggested spot instead, a doggy room, even equipped with a fake fire hydrant.
And she said, we also have a pet relief center. And I just looked at her. So she said, there haven't been a lot of dogs in the airport today.
No, that's horrible.
Yvette Compton is a mother of 3, including a newborn. She says finding a private room, even outside an airport, is often difficult.
It is upsetting because I think it's a lot of people giving up the breastfeeding because they don't have the private spaces in the public areas.
Things aren't much better here at Reagan National. Inside the main terminal behind me, there are no nursing rooms. But inside Terminal A, which is a satellite terminal, there is one nursing room that was just put in recently. We easily found that room, clean, private, and even set up with rocking chairs. Back at Dulles, a spokesperson told us 4 rooms are being constructed throughout the airport. And when it comes to that United employee, the airline says it will apologize to Cooper.
I find it appalling that they don't have anywhere that a woman can go and express her breast milk.
All right, so that was a very interesting story, to say the least. All right, so now we are going to go to, we just saw Donald Trump in Iowa, but Hillary Clinton was also in Iowa today at a rally, so we will bring that to you live right now.
2 of them plus Mitchell and me. So I know what the hard decisions are. For the Israelis, it is security. You know, Israel's a small country. How do you secure it against a pretty dangerous and now volatile neighborhood because of what's happening in Syria and the pressures that are being put on the Jordanians and the Lebanese? So security is a real issue. And I have done enough work on this to know that it's not something you can quickly resolve. For the Palestinians, it's autonomy to make their own decisions and not to be continually under the authority of the Israelis. And that's where the two really collide. Because in order to have autonomy, you have to be able to make decisions about things like policing and security. But if the Israelis believe that the decisions you are making will endanger their security, then they have to, you know, put a stop to it. So that is a very oversimplified description of the problem. We held these 3 meetings, and I think we were making some progress in really unloading all of the fears and the, you know, concerns on both sides. The Arab Spring happened. It caused a big upheaval in the area, and it became more difficult for Israel to predict whether they could be secure in the area of the Sinai Peninsula because of the change of leadership in Egypt. That's why I mentioned negotiating the ceasefire. So circumstances once again changed, and now it's very difficult to figure out how either the Palestinians or the Israelis can put together a deal until they know what's going to happen in Syria and until they know, will Jordan remain stable and supportive of the peace process, because Jordan, with both this king and the prior king, have been, and what's going to happen in Lebanon. Hezbollah is the main proxy for Iran in propping up Assad. Are they going to be focused there, or are they going to turn their attention back to Israel? It's a really dangerous, complicated situation. But I don't think we can ever or should ever give up on 2 things. One, keep pushing for a 2-state solution. And people who say, you know, give up on it, it'll never happen, I don't accept that. And number 2, keep pushing for more, more support and relief for the Palestinians to make as many of their decisions as they possibly can, so that they can have more authority over what happens inside the territory that they are largely responsible for. So that's what we're going to keep trying to do. So. Oh, my goodness, my goodness. We have a lot of hands up here, and I don't want to leave anybody out. How about the lady in red right there? Here comes the microphone.
Hello. Hi. I was struck listening to President Obama's last speech about the most recent shooting.
All right, we are going to pause this coverage right now because we are going to go to breaking news in Hollywood, Florida, where there is a police standoff. So we're going to have live aerials right now, as you can see. I'll be right back as I try to get more info for you. The helicopter shot keeps on going in and out. Once again, this is in Hollywood, Florida. As you can see, SWAT teams are at this apartment complex, still working to get you some more info. Okay, getting more info for you. Apparently, a man has barricaded himself in a nearby motel slash apartment area. So that is what we are looking at right now. We will continue to update you as we get more information, but you are watching a News Now breaking news situation out in Hollywood, Florida, where there is a police standoff with a man. You can see the SWAT members there as they have this complex surrounded. No doubt they are trying to negotiate with the man that has barricaded himself. You are watching a live stream, which means we can see anything that might happen. So if anything does happen really bad, we of course will jump out of that. But just to remind you, this is a live stream right here of an active situation in Hollywood, Florida. Getting some new info for you. There is also a high school nearby that is on lockdown as the situation happens. All right, right now police are not saying why the suspect is being sought, but obviously there is a situation here where the suspect has barricaded himself, and now SWAT team members are on hand. We are looking at live aerials in Hollywood, Florida. So we see it. We'll see if the shot does come back. We've been having issues with that feed there. And it doesn't look like it. We'll monitor this and trying to. All right. Back to Hillary.
And he sounded so sad, and he sounded so tired. And I know a lot of people think that if things didn't change after Sandy Hook, why would they ever change? How are you going to keep from being sad and tired?
I think by being angry and determined. I mean, you got to have emotional energy here, and I totally get where the president's coming from, because it's just the worst feeling. You're president of the United States, and people are being massacred inside your own country, and you see the hold that the NRA has over members of Congress. My view on this is we got to keep getting up every day and fighting back. You can't ever get discouraged. There's too much at stake. And I also have said that I would take certain executive actions to close these loopholes. And it may be, because, you know, the White House has time ahead, it may be that the White House will want to do that. And I would be fully supportive of that. Whatever we can do to send a message. Now, the real answer to this is for gun owners to form a different organization that supports the Second Amendment.
And we do have the chopper back up, so we are back on breaking news. As we continue to monitor this, hopefully this feed will stay up for us this time. Once again, a nearby high school in this area in Hollywood, Florida, is on lockdown nearby because of this situation where a suspect has barricaded himself into this motel area. You could see SWAT team members all around the premises. Little info for you on SWAT team procedures. To breach doors quickly, SWAT teams will use either battering rams or shotguns with breaching rounds or explosive charges that can be used to break the locks or hinges of doors to demolish the frame of the door as well. What they have in their arsenal is pepper ball guns, stinger grenades, flashbang grenades, and of course tear gas. They also have shields to protect themselves as when they do enter a building. You just never know what this person might be thinking or wanting to do. And it has once again became very choppy of this chopper in Florida does not want to cooperate. You really have to give it to the officers and SWAT team members because, boy, you really just don't know what is going on inside the mind of this suspect that obviously does not want to come out right now. And we don't know the situation of why this person is being sought by the police, but they obviously have a good reason for it, and this person just doesn't want to deal with the situation that they have found themselves in. So always a scary situation when you are dealing with someone that you just don't know what they're going to do. It's a true wild card situation, and you really have to give it up to these police officers who are putting their lives on the line right now. We do appreciate everybody watching this News Now stream of live images of Hollywood, Florida, as this feed continues to go in and out. But we are monitoring a breaking police standoff situation there in Hollywood, Florida, where a suspect has barricaded himself. I think this helicopter needs to go in a better spot here. Signal. I think they just need to move over a little bit. We could send Sky Fox, but that would take a little bit too long.
We just hope that this does end peacefully. Just a reminder that you are watching a live stream of this, so we will, if we do see anything bad happen, we will dip out of that. But live breaking news scene in Hollywood, Florida, as the signal keeps going in and out. It looks like we might have lost it once again for good. We'll give it a couple more seconds here. All right, folks, we are going to go back to Hillary in the meantime. Maybe. Signal still on.
We just need more guns. And the idea that you need more guns to stop people who are committing mass shootings is not only illogical, but offensive. You're going about your daily business. You're going to a movie. You're in the dark, for heaven's sakes. And some guy comes in who should have been committed in Louisiana and was falling apart in Colorado and just opens fire, and you're supposed to fire back in a crowded, dark theater? This is craziness. I mean, the whole thing just is aimed at protecting gun manufacturers so that they can continue to sell their wares without any accountability and collecting money by scaring gun owners. So I know why the president feels discouraged, because it is discouraging to see the cynicism, the greed behind this lobbying. And that's why we can't let them get away with it. We can't just say, okay, nothing we can do about it and walk away. We have got to fight back, and we've got to do it on a number of different platforms, and that's what I intend to do for as long as I can. Thanks. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, this gentleman right there. Yeah, right there. You. Yeah, and here comes a microphone, I think, which is zipping over towards you.
Okay, thank you. First of all, you were really good on Saturday Night Live.
You mean Val was really good.
The humor was good. I think the humor is great. I have a kind of a broad question about domestic realities here. I think the Trump campaign and Carson have really lowered our level of debate, particularly the anti-foreign level. In their words, Trump not correcting the fellow about the president's background, Carson saying a Muslim couldn't be president, and so on. And I think what they're doing is providing cover for a lot of the kind of ugly side of America to emerge, the Rush Limbaugh side, if you will. So I wonder, as president, how would you begin, or in the campaign, to elevate the debate back to where we respect people from other places and we stand up to the bullying of these two guys?
Are you a political science professor?
Close enough. Education.
Yeah, close enough. Yeah. Oh, that was brilliantly stated. Look, I agree with you. I don't know how many presidential elections have happened since I've been an adult, but this is reaching a new low on the Republican side. The kind of language, the insults, the attacks, and you know, some of it is entertainment. That's what they intend it to be, which is sad, but that's what it is. Some of it is a view of America that is just out of date and out of touch. But whatever the explanation for it, it really does deeply concern me, because there is a sense of disappointment, even anger, in many parts of the electorate. People who feel like the Great Recession knocked them down and they haven't yet gotten back up, that they don't have the real opportunity to, you know, have a good job, stay in the middle class, that the deck is rigged, as it is, for the wealthy, for those at top. There's legitimate, you know, real trends in the economy and country that people are responding to, and they are being fed by the kind of, you know, language and behavior that is evident from the Republican candidates. So I think we all have to speak up and speak out when they say things. I've done that. I've gone very clearly after some of the comments that not just Trump, but others have made. We have to stand against this partisan political effort to defund Planned Parenthood, because it's not based on facts. It's a total play to the, you know, part of the Republican constituency. It's just a partisan investigation. But we also have to be trying to reach out to those folks around our country who are either turned off by politics or so angry that they are attracted by the other side. And that's not easy. I think that, you know, we're trying on our side to, you know, lay out specific proposals, to talk about what we would do as president, to lift up our vision of what our country can be. And I'm really clear in saying that, look, the economy does better when we have a Democrat in the White House. That's just a fact. And the fact is that, you know, you can go way back. Unemployment is lower. Incomes are higher. The stock market is even higher. And you are 4 times more likely to have a recession when a Republican is in the White House. So we've got to make the case to people who are forgetting what President Obama inherited. He inherited the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression from a Republican administration and a Republican Congress. And the Republicans are counting on us all having amnesia. And you hear the Republican candidates, they're going back to the failed policy of trickle-down economics. You know, get out of the way of corporations, cut taxes on the wealthy, and it'll all work out. No, it won't work out. We will be back in the ditch again. Incomes for working and middle-class people will not go up. So we do have to take them on their, their insults, their attacks, their behavior. But more importantly, we have to take them on their basic philosophy, which would set the country back. That's why I started by saying we can't let them rip up affordable care. We can't let them do that. That is what they will do if they get the White House. And they will turn the clock back on all of the rights that people have struggled so hard to achieve. So everybody has a stake in this election. And a lot of Republicans are thinking hard about what they're hearing on the other side of the aisle. And they should, because I know that they too will be impacted by some of the crazier ideas that these folks bring to bear. So we have to do our part, but voters have to do their part. Don't get discouraged. Don't get turned off. Don't give up. Because if we keep pushing forward on all of these issues, we will be successful. And we will be able to build on the progress of this administration and not see it just ripped away. When my husband left office, we had 23 million new jobs. Incomes had risen for everybody. The top, the middle, working folks, the poor. We had more poor people doing better than we'd had at any time in decades. And we ended up with a balanced budget and a surplus. Do you know what that would have meant? We could have made Social Security and Medicare solvent maybe for the rest of the century. We could have invested in
professional mariners. We were also searching for members of the extended Coast Guard family. One of our Coast Guard petty officers, chief petty officers, had a brother that was on the El Faro. I received an email yesterday from one of our civilian employees at the Coast Guard Yard in Baltimore, Maryland, and he told me that his family friends, good family friends, that he saw one of the crew members come home as a baby, saw him grow up, saw him go off on the El Faro. So those type of things make it very personal as we search. But I know that the Coast Guard, along with our brethren in the Navy and the Air Force, as well as the commercial tugs that were out there helping us search, did all they could in this search effort. They did all they could. Our Coast Guard crews, our aircraft, flew repeatedly into that storm at dangerously low altitudes to try to find the ship, find survivors. On Sunday, one of our helicopters flew for 11 hours, over 11 hours, including 2 in-flight refuelings, because they wanted to keep that search going during the best search opportunity that we had on Sunday. Our cutter crews, as soon as they arrived on scene, it was an all-hands effort. Folks who don't usually go to the bridge, engineers, cooks, did so. And they grabbed binoculars, night vision goggles, and would stay up there for hours scanning the horizon. So it meant a lot to them. I say all this because I want the families to really know how committed we were to finding their loved ones, to finding our fellow professional mariners, and really to find those who go down to the sea in ships and do work upon great waters. I hope the families can take some small measure of peace from that. So as most of you know, there will be an investigation now that the official search will be suspended at sunset tonight. And I would like to introduce Vice Chairman Dinzar from the National Transportation Safety Board, who will make a statement as well.
Good afternoon. I'm Bella Dinzar, Vice Chairman of the National Transportation Safety Board. As we reported last night, investigators from the NTSB arrived on scene here in Jacksonville yesterday morning, and we began our on-scene investigation of the sinking of the El Faro that occurred on October 1st. Before I tell you about our investigative process, I want to extend our condolences on behalf of everyone at NTSB to the families and friends of the victims of this tragic accident. And we, along with all of you, were very saddened to learn that no survivors have been found. Our Transportation Disaster Assistance, or Family Assistance Group, has been tirelessly working with the teams that have already been provided by the U.S. Coast Guard and by TOTE to assist and inform the families, and they will continue to do this. They will continue to support all the families with missing loved ones throughout our investigation, both here on the scene and as the accident investigation progresses. As I've previously mentioned, although both the NTSB and the U.S. Coast Guard have the authority to conduct marine casualty investigations, the NTSB is the lead agency on this accident investigation. I'd like to explain a little more in detail about the NTSB's party process, which we've had in place for over 30 years. The NTSB offers party status to those companies, governments, and associations that have employees, facilities, or equipment that are involved in this accident. We offer party status to these organizations because they can provide the technical expertise and the relevant information supporting the development of the best factual record that we can get. We've established parties to this investigation, and the parties include the U.S. Coast Guard, the American Bureau of Shipping, and TOTE. The NTSB has put together a multidisciplinary team to investigate every aspect of this accident. The team is led by investigator in charge Thomas Rothroffy, to my right, who has extensive experience, long-time experience in marine investigations. And he also has a group of highly experienced investigators who have made progress in a number of areas. So here is what our investigators are working on as we speak. Our operations group has been scheduling and conducting interviews. Specifically, they're interviewing the master of El Yunque, which is the sister ship of the El Faro. Our engineering group has obtained the vessel safety management system. They're interviewing the TOTE designated person ashore who had the last communications with the vessel. They're collecting documentation and scheduling interviews with the off-rotation members of the crew. In the area of survival factors, our investigators are reviewing areas of the safety management system as well. They'll be examining the wreckage which has been recovered during the search and the rescue phase of this operation, and also further wreckage as it becomes available. Our human performance team is hard at work gathering personnel records and scheduling interviews. And to clarify, up to this point, the Coast Guard has been conducting search and rescue operations. The Coast Guard equipment that is used for search and rescue is different from the equipment that will be used to locate the vessel and the voyage data recorder. We are coordinating with the United States Navy to bring in that equipment. We also wanted to provide you an update on the voyage data recorder, or the VDR. The VDR, the type, is a Voyage Master 2 manufactured by Sperry Marine. It's a type of recorder known as a simplified recorder, which records the audio on the bridge as well as basic navigation information such as course and speed. There's a protected data capsule that is physically installed on top of the bridge. We know that there are reports that this vessel has sunk in deep water. There are ROVs, remotely operated vehicles, that are capable of being operated down to these depths. Assuming we are able to locate the vessel, the VDR could be obtained from the vessel and brought to the surface using these ROVs. All of our teams have been working around the clock to gather information and facts to determine what caused this accident in order that we can prevent these accidents from ever happening again. As to the schedule going forward, our investigation is well underway. We're working closely with our partners, and we're gathering the principal evidence and the key measurements to expedite our on-scene activities. We expect to be on scene from 7 to 10 days, but we will be here as long as it takes. Although we made good progress today, I do want to emphasize that we are still early in our investigative phase. Our objective is not just to find out what happened, but why it happened, so that we can prevent it from happening again. Let me reiterate, too, that we do not determine the probable cause of an accident while on scene, and we also do not speculate about what may have caused the accident. We'll be holding additional briefings as we have further progress to report. And for the latest information on briefings, you can follow us on Twitter at NTSB or on our website, ntsb.gov. And those who have information that might be relevant to our investigation may contact us at this email, eyewitnessreport@ntsb.gov. And we urge you to do that if you have such information. Now, we'd be happy to take a few questions, Captain Fedor and I. And to ask a question, please raise your hand and wait for me to identify you. And please state your name and your affiliate. Yes, in the back. So the question is, what was a form of communication that the captain initially made, and how did he make that type of communication? As we understand it, that's part of our investigation to find out the exact information. But as we understand it, there was a type of radio communication, and he did indicate that there was some engine issues. So we're reviewing all of the records to make sure that we have the accurate information. And we don't want to give you any information by hearsay at this point. Next question. Yes, sir.
The last known position of the ship was 36 miles to the northeast of the Crooked Islands in the Bahamas, which most of you know. We believe the vessel was lost in that approximate position. When they became disabled on Thursday morning, and even into Friday, we had a tough time getting any assets there because the hurricane, if you remember, Hurricane Joaquin sat on that position, didn't really move. And it didn't move until Saturday. And Saturday was the first time we could even get to that last known position. And the conditions were still horrific. 100-mile-an-hour winds, 40-foot seas, less than a mile visibility. On Sunday was the first time we could really get a good search effort in there. And that was the day, at the end of the day, we reached a conclusion that we thought the vessel was lost. And that's why we made that announcement on Monday. But we do think it's near that last known position.
So the question is, could we comment on any of the safety deficiencies? Our investigation will look at every aspect, including any reports, including any maintenance issues, including the records of the ship itself. So that is part of all of our investigation. We go very deep into all the records relating to that.
These were things that were supposed to have been on record already. Have you guys looked into those already, or is that something that...
We're in our first full day on scene, so we are looking into the records. And yes. So the question is, based on the age of the ship, should it have been sailing this route? We investigate all types of ships. We have investigated ships that are much older than the El Faro, and we will look into the construction of the ship, all the conditions that it sails in. That's part of our investigation to see whether and how the decision was made to sail. Yes, sir.
Tony Winton with Associated Press with Captain Fedor. Can you tell us a little bit, Captain, about you were tracking the debris field, and we talked to some of the families. Mm-hmm. You were really getting into quite a bit of detail about the science of how that works.
Yeah.
What kinds of things did you wind up seeing over the past couple of days?
Fair enough. Once we were able to get on scene, we identified really two major debris fields. The first one was in the vicinity of that last known position, and it was about 300 nautical square miles. Approximately 60 miles to the north of that, there was a second debris field. That was only about 70 nautical miles, 70 square nautical miles. So what we did after those searches on Sunday, where we confirmed that the vessel was lost, and we in our search planning efforts, we assume it sank, we reduced our search areas to those two debris fields because we thought that would be the best chance to find survivors. So what we saw in those areas, if you can picture a driving range with golf balls littered everywhere, that was the debris. That was the styrofoam, that was pieces of the ship, small pieces here and there, littered everywhere. We put our focus on anything related to what a survivor might be clinging to: life rings, survival suits, the life rafts, lifeboats. We wanted to check each and every one of those out because that would be the best chance to identify any survivors. But that's what we found out there. So we'll come over. I'll do the second half of that. First of all, the Coast Guard has no ability to detect that VDR if it was pinging down on the bottom. In terms of the families, how we approach this, our conversations with the families start as soon as possible. As soon as the search goes on, we engage with the family members. We consider it, those are privileged conversations that we're going to have with them but before we talk to the media. In this case, it was complicated because you had 33 crew members, and they each had families and loved ones who cared deeply about them. So we set up conference calls with those families, and we briefed them twice a day as we went through that process. We met with them earlier today at noon. My boss, Admiral Bushman, Scott Bushman, is the district commander. He was there. He told the families what our plans were for tonight. And you can imagine that is an emotional meeting. We wanted them to know everything that we did to try to find their loved ones. And those are emotional and privileged conversations, and I'll leave it at that. Did you have another part to your question?
The question is, do we know anything about the pinging to the VDR? As I mentioned earlier, the equipment that's used by the Coast Guard for search and rescue is very different from what is used to recover, to try to discover where a vessel is and where a voyage data recorder might be. So we are in talks with the Navy right now to determine how we can bring in that equipment. Yes, right there.
Every search and rescue case is unique, and we really try to look at the point where a person may have entered the water. So we assume that if they were able to abandon ship, it would have been on Thursday. So in the warmer waters here in Florida and the Bahamas, you could normally expect a person to survive for 4 to 5 days. That's ultimately the challenge there, because in normal conditions, you could expect that. They were abandoning ship into a Category 4 hurricane. So you have 140-mile-an-hour winds, up to 50-foot seas, and zero visibility. It would have been challenging to survive in the most dire conditions. So, and one thing I did want to address, just going back to your question, ma'am, about the families, I just want to say those families are brave individuals. They were inspiring to me because so many of them came up to us and to Admiral Bushman and said, how are you doing? How are you getting through this? And I couldn't believe that they would do that. And it's just inspiring to see people of courage like that. They're obviously going through a grieving process. And again, these are professional mariners who were lost. And those are our kin. We make our living at sea too. We've been baptized in the same salt waters. So it means a lot to us. So. Sure.
Can you tell us again, getting to the voyage data recorder, and you said it was the VDR. Was it fixed or flow free? And let's start with that.
The question is, can we tell you a little more about the VDR? And the VDR was fixed. It was attached to the bridge of the vessel. It is set to activate once it is immersed in water, and it has a battery life of about 30 days.
And are you concerned regarding the great depth, and also if the vessel is upside down, how do you get it?
So there are types of equipment that can reach those depths, such as ROVs.
But I meant the data recorder itself. Would that depth be a concern for how effective it is?
So the question is it a concern for the depth of the VDR, the voyage data recorder? And the voyage data recorders are built to withstand a lot of pressure, and with that, if the vessel is located, then there are equipment that can be used in order to go to those depths to retrieve a VDR.
Who owns that information?
Yep.
Chris Love, CBS News. What equipment are you going to use to locate the ship and the VDR?
So the equipment that's used to locate a vessel and the VDR is very different from what's been used by the Coast Guard for the search and rescue operations. And that's equipment that contains sonar that's used by the U.S. Navy. And that's what we're under discussion with them now about how to use that. Yes.
No, we were never able to identify the second lifeboat. We did identify the first one, located it. It was heavily damaged. If the second lifeboat was out there, we're confident we would have found it. With the type of assets we were using to search, we're confident we would have found it at that point. In terms of other life-saving equipment, we did find a deflated raft, and we did find a couple of personal flotation devices as well. They were, no, just in the one situation where we found remains. Yes, ma'am. I think you were asking what was the initial distress? Oh, two separate things. Two separate things. So we were notified Thursday morning of an emergency distress. It was a satellite distress, but we didn't get a position along with that initially. What happened was there was some communication between the vessel and the ship owner, basically indicating where their position was and that they were disabled. They were disabled, they were without propulsion, and they had taken some water inside the ship, and they were listing 15 degrees, meaning leaning over 15 degrees. So we received that information. We're immediately concerned because we knew that last known position was right by the eye of Hurricane Joaquin. So the VDR is a different. I can't speak to the VDR. I would defer.
So the question is about the VDR. The VDR doesn't actually activate until it's immersed in water, and then at that point it starts emitting the pings. Yes. So the question is, have we learned of any communications between the owner and the ship or other communications? That is part of our investigation. We are looking at every communication, electronic, telephone, paper, any kind of communication that has gone out that will help us with our investigation. That is what we were trying to figure out, is we're looking at all the communications.
Sure. We are, today is the 6th day, so it's basically 6.5 days that the search would go on, ending at sunset tonight. So the type of assets we used Coast Guard C-130 aircraft. We also used an Air Force C-130 aircraft, a Navy P-8 aircraft flying right out of here in Jacksonville. The significance of the P-8 is it can fly at very high altitudes. We flew it up at 27,000 feet, and it could scan a wide swath of the ocean. And that's really what helped us determine that the El Faro was not out there, or that the second lifeboat was not out there. Those aircraft are still flying today. They're flying today. On the surface, we had 3 Coast Guard cutters out there. The cutter Northland, 270-foot cutter, the cutter Resolute, a 210-foot cutter, and the Charles Sexton, which is one of our new fast response cutters. They're 154 feet long. There were also 3 ocean-going tugs that the company hired to be out there. So they all worked in concert. The search planning efforts were coordinated in Miami, and we gave direction to those units each day of what we wanted them to do. It began Thursday morning with call-outs to the ship. We directed, there were Hurricane Hunter aircraft that flew Thursday and Friday right into the eye of the hurricane, but they were flying at 10,000 feet. We asked the Air Force planes to do call-outs to the ship. They did that. They received no reply. So, yes, ma'am. again, the decision to end a search, suspend a search, is painful. And it's based on the art and the science of search and rescue. The science speaks to the physiology of how long can you physically survive if you are in the water. And that's normally that 4 to 5 days that I mentioned before. Then you have to look at the art of it. Yes, they were experienced mariners, but if they abandoned ship on Thursday, it would have been into that Category 4 storm. 140-mile-an-hour winds, those 50-foot waves, zero visibility with the constant threat of ingesting water, salt water. It's just a dire situation for anybody to be in for that length of time. I understand that the families are still grieving and they're going through that process. We tried to help explain our processes to them today. Yes, sir.
Can you tell us how many direct communications did the Coast Guard have with the vessel? What was said? And was there a report of a scuttle being opened?
Yeah. We had, the Coast Guard had zero communications with the vessel itself. All of our communications occurred with the shipping company. They're the ones who told us the last known position, as well as the fact that they took some water in and they were listing 15 degrees and that they were without propulsion. So that's when we immediately activated our search and rescue system, but we were never, no one was ever able to communicate them through the callouts.
Was there a hatch open or a scuttle?
There was a report that there was a topside hatch that was open that allowed some water in. I am not certain of the circumstances of why it was open, but that's where the water came from and caused that 15-degree list.
Who owns the VDR, by the way? That information, when you retrieve it, who is responsible to get it? And who has ownership to that information?
I'm going to take the question from the woman who's been waiting patiently over there.
There were 2 other ships that were in the area that we told about the El Faro, and we asked them to do call-outs. There's an unwritten rule about mariners that if there's another vessel in distress, you'll stop what you're doing to go to assist, and they certainly did that, but they obviously couldn't get too close to the storm either. But they did call-outs. The Hurricane Hunter aircraft did call-outs. And again, we tried to get as close as we could with our aircraft on Saturday, and they were still getting battered by 100-mile-an-hour winds. When they returned to Clearwater, panels from the aircraft had fallen off. I mean, they were pushing the absolute extent of their operating limits to get as close as they could.
Last question.
So.
We have a report that there was a manual ping from the VDR when the ship went down last Thursday. Say yes or no to that.
I can't speak to that.
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yep. We have a report that there was a manual ping from the VDR when the ship went down last Thursday. Yes or no?
I'm not aware of that. The question is, are we aware of any manual pings? Right now, that's part of our investigation. We're looking at any electronic data that's there, so we will investigate that very thoroughly and let you know if we know anything. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Hi, all. Kinsey Schofield here with you now, jumping in for Mike so he can run and grab his lunch. That's a wrap on the Coast Guard update. It looks like Loretta Lynch is talking on one of our satellites. Let's tune in and see what she has to say.
Homelessness and the problem of inadequate mental health services. These are issues that we all see every day, but you all face, frankly, at the crux, at the heart of this issue. And this is why we are focused on strengthening our partnerships with other government agencies as well. The Departments of Education, Health and Human Services, as well as Housing and Urban Development, are all focusing on these issues with us. And it's why we simply have to examine holistic and comprehensive approaches. And it's why we in the department will continue to work to build a strong and effective coalition to take on these complex challenges. Now, I want to thank everyone, both at the department and the White House, who've made this convening possible, because gatherings like this one are crucial. They're crucial to forge productive partnerships. They're crucial to surface the good ideas, because you all are dealing with them. and this has been such a productive conversation. But meetings like this allow us to learn from one another. They allow us to share stories and best practices and to find new solutions to old problems. They make it clear that our shared determination is to protect and empower all of our communities, our neighborhoods, our neighbors. And they also invigorate our collective and our individual efforts as we look to the future and the challenges that lie ahead. It is so good to know that we have all of you working with us. Now, obviously, progress will not be immediate. It won't be easy. None of this has been easy for anyone in this room. Anyone who's been in law enforcement over years knows that these are long-standing issues, and some of these problems seem intractable. But I am confident that today and in continued conversations, we have identified and will continue to identify effective ways to improve public safety, and we will put those ideas to good use. I am really encouraged. There is such a spirit of engagement and commitment to action in this room, as well as this commitment to the ideal of public service that's exemplified by everyone in this room today. And I'm excited by what we're going to achieve together in the days and months to come. So in closing, let me thank all of you for coming here today. Some of you were local, many of you traveled, but all of you put thought and effort into your discussions, into the work here today, and we appreciate it. Your caring shows through, your commitment shows through, your dedication shows through. And so thank you for beginning this important conversation with us, and thank you also in advance for continuing to work with us. Thank you so much.
Conference. Thank you all very much, and you can talk to the press outside.
Well, that was brief. Sometimes we dip in and out of whatever the satellite's giving us, and we got a taste of what Loretta Lynch was talking about today, but I'm not quite sure what it was. I do have it in full because I know Mikey was recording it for you on the other side, so we'll find out what that's about. And then one video Mike left for me is Obama talking about a need for pay increase, and I see that there's somebody else standing at the podium at the beginning of the video, but I know that the objective of this speech is to discuss a pay increase for Americans. So let's take a look at this video next. And hello to everybody that said hi to me in the chat room. Jim W., Rachel D., so good to see you. Thank you for spending your morning with us. And Felice, good to see you back.
Like you can see at the bottom there. My name is Terrence Wise, and I'm a 36-year-old second-generation fast food worker. The first generation is right here in the second row, my mom. That is the first generation. And despite my work in nearly 2 decades in this industry, I make just $8 an hour working at McDonald's and Burger King. That ain't right. My fiance is a home health care worker. She's been working in that industry. Well, she's been working in home health care for 12 years and makes $10 an hour, taking care of some of the most vulnerable citizens in this nation. We raised 3 little girls in Kansas City, Missouri. We work hard every day, but the wages are so low we skip meals. We've been homeless while I'm working 2 jobs, and I barely get to see my daughters. Things didn't improve until I joined the fast food workers across America to stand up and build a movement for $15 and create opportunities to make our voices heard on the job by joining a union. That's true. And I have seen firsthand how we are heard and how we make change when workers like us in this room stick together. We are united as working people, as moms and dads, and as proud Americans to make sure all work pays what we need to support our families. For real. As long as working people go without food and shelter and utilities, we won't back down. My 3 little girls are worth more. This movement is about their future. We are honored that the President is joining us to lift up the voices of workers across America. If I can say that one more time. That'd be awesome. We are honored that the President is joining us today to lift up the voices of the workers across America. And I am proud to introduce the President of the United States of America, Barack Obama.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Well, everybody please have a seat. Welcome to the White House. Let me offer at the outset the observation that Terrence could run for something. But we're so grateful to you for sharing your story, for everything you're doing to organize and inspire Americans across the country. You already recognized your mom, Joanne, another fast food worker who's come up today from South Carolina. This is actually a remarkable moment. Neither of them make enough money to be able to afford to travel much. So this is the first time Terrence and Joanne have seen each other in 10 years. 10 years apart because they don't earn enough to be able to just hop on a plane and visit each other. The only problem I have with this story is that I am not sure that Joanne is old enough to actually be Terrence's mom, based on how she's looking there. Their story describes why we wanted to have this summit. Their story describes why workers need a voice. That's why our Secretary of Labor, Tom Perez, is here. And I should add, this is a pretty good way for the Labor Secretary to celebrate his birthday. That's why we've got our outstanding leader in the House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi, here. And Senator Al Franken is here. And Congressman Gregory Meeks is here. And Congresswoman Frederica Wilson is here because they have consistently been on the front lines of championing the interests and the concerns of ordinary people who are working hard every single day and aren't asking for the world. All they're asking for is dignity and living wages and being able to take care of their families. That's why we've got business and labor leaders here today, including the head of the AFL-CIO, Rich Trump, who's been fighting these issues for decades. And that's why we've got workers and organizers and tech experts and so many others at this first ever White House Summit on Workers' Voice. And we convened this summit because we believe that this is a country where if we work hard, everybody should be able to get ahead. That the story of America has been each successive generation getting an education where they could, working hard, saving, scrimping, making sure their kids get a little something better, hoping that at the end of the day they're able to have a home of their own and be able to retire with some dignity and some respect, have basic benefits so that if they get sick, their families aren't bankrupt. And make no mistake, Americans have been working harder than ever to bring this country back, to move it forward. After the worst crisis in my lifetime, back in 2007, we were able to take the unemployment rate that was around 10 all the way down to 5.1. Businesses were shedding about 800,000 jobs a month. Today they've created jobs for 67 straight months, 13.2 million jobs in total. When I took office, our auto industry was flatlining. Manufacturing had been in decline for a decade. Today we're on pace to sell more American cars than in any year since 2001. And we've seen stronger job growth in manufacturing than any time since the 1990s. Our manufacturers are coming back. Hundreds of thousands of good middle-class jobs are being created. When I took office, more than 15% of the American people were uninsured. Today, only 9.2% are uninsured. And for the first time on record, more than 90% of Americans have health insurance. So we've made progress together. At a time when America's economy was flat on its back, we took some tough steps, not always popular, and we were able to get the economy growing again. But what I've said all along is that it wasn't enough just to get back to where we were before the financial crisis, before Lehman's, before the Great Recession. We had to tackle problems that had been building up for decades. And the central problem in our economy that had been building up for decades is the fact that while folks at the top did very well, ordinary workers were seeing their wages and their incomes flatlining. And so the biggest challenge America continues to have is making sure that everybody in this new economy is participating. Everybody who works hard is getting paid a decent wage with decent benefits. Everybody has some basic economic security. And that the incredible productivity and wealth and innovation that has been a hallmark of the American economy is broadly based. Wages need to rise more quickly. We need jobs to offer the kind of pay and benefits that let people raise a family. And in order to do that, workers need a voice. They need the voice and the leverage that guarantees this kind of middle-class security. And that's true now more than ever during this time of rapid economic change. In recent years, we've seen an explosion of American innovation in the workforce. And because of technology, people are empowered and employers are empowered to create value and services in new ways. We've got folks who are getting a paycheck driving for Uber or Lyft. People who are cleaning other people's houses through Handy, offering their skills on TaskRabbit. And so there's flexibility and autonomy and opportunity for workers, and millennials love working their phones much quicker than I can. And all this is promising, but if the combination of globalization and automation undermines the capacity of the ordinary worker and the ordinary family to be able to support themselves, if employers are able to use these factors to weaken workers' voices and give them a take-it-or-leave-it deal in which they don't have a chance to ever save for the kind of retirement they're looking for. If we don't refashion the social compact so that workers are able to be rewarded properly for the labor that they put in, people like Terrence, then we're going to have problems. And it's not just going to be a problem for our politics, creating resentment and anxiety. It's going to be a problem for our economy, because the history shows that when we do best as an economy It's when workers have money in their pockets and they're able to buy goods and services, and they in turn create new demand and create new opportunity and create the kinds of markets that businesses can then take advantage of. That's just a fact. So we've got to make sure that as we continue to move forward, both in this new on-demand economy and in the traditional economy as a whole, hard work guarantees some security. And that's what this summit is about. Making sure that as our economy continues to evolve, working Americans don't get lost in the shuffle. They can come together and they can win. And we can do this. We've done it before. There was a time when we shifted from an agrarian economy to an industrial economy. And as we did, we made some adjustments to our arrangements. We said, you know what, we're going to offer everybody a free public education. We put together the New Deal, put in place systems like Social Security so that people had some basic protections in their golden years. We put together labor laws that allowed for collective bargaining and banned child labor and allowed people to raise their voices and have some leverage in seeking a living wage. Labor unions were often the driving force for progress. The 40-hour work week, overtime pay, health insurance, retirement plans. The middle class itself was built on a union label. And that middle class that was built was the engine of our prosperity. And, you know, people at the top were doing just fine during these periods. We had a lot of wealth. The top 1%, the top 10% still claimed a much larger share of income and wealth than everybody else, but it was in the context of a dynamic economy where wages and incomes were rising and most Americans felt stable and secure. The future looked brighter than the past. Now, the economy's changing again. Technology's made it easier for companies to do more with less. They have world markets and the capacity to shift operations along the global supply chain. Special interests argued that worker protections, including unions themselves, were to blame for middle-class struggles, and unfortunately, too many folks bought into that. So, union enrollment dropped precipitously. Oftentimes, companies became more sophisticated about keeping out unions. Workers, fearing that they might lose their job to offshoring or to moving down to a right-to-work state, felt less confident about negotiations. Our culture as a whole started somehow extolling greed is good instead of how do we work together to create a good society for everybody. Jobs as a consequence, began paying less, offering fewer benefits. And in recent years, we've seen more companies cut costs by hiring contractors and permatemps, workers who are laboring side by side with full-time employees but don't earn the same pay and benefits and job security. It's a bad phrase, permatemps. The bottom line is, as union membership has fallen, inequality has risen. Union membership today is as low as it's been in about 80 years, since the 30s. And I believe that when folks attack unions, they're attacking the middle class. They're attacking cops, firefighters, teachers, nurses, service workers, public servants, auto workers, plumbers, Americans who keep our streets safe and clean, who prepare our food, who clean up after us, who care for our aging parents. And so in today's economy, we should be making it easier, not harder, for folks to join a union. We should be strengthening our labor laws, not rolling them back. And for contractors or workers who can't join unions, we should be finding new avenues for them to join together and advocate for themselves as well. There's a saying that I think Lee Saunders, where's Lee? He's in here somewhere. There he is, right next to Rich over there. He likes to quote this: if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So we got to get more working Americans to the table. But in order to do that, we have to acknowledge that you can't just keep on doing the same things thinking you're going to get a different outcome. So part of the goal of this summit is to think creatively about how do we have a growing movement around the country to empower workers, to give them a sense of possibility. And we're seeing some of that happening here. Some of the people who are representing here. Workers are organizing online at sites like coworker.org.
I apologize for breaking in, but I have President Joe Biden coming in on one of our satellites.
A few minutes late, I was with the president.
Our Vice President Joe Biden.
In the Oval, and he wanted to make sure I don't hold you up because you're all going to go over to the town hall with the president. And we have, I'm told, everybody here, Rich and Harold are here, Mary Kay, all you guys here, I can't even see out there, but the backbone of organized labor is here, and building trades, plumbers, AFSCME, I go down the whole list here. And as I said, I know you've had a long day, so I'm going to be untypically blunt with you. The fact is that through President Obama's leadership, we actually have gone from crisis to recovery on the cusp of actually having a renaissance in our economic possibilities relative to the rest of the world. But the truth of the matter is, because of the way the deck has been stacked the previous 10 to 12 years, middle-class folks have been getting hurt, and they're still getting hurt. And I brought this little chart. You all know it. You've seen it 100 times. A direct correlation between what, in fact, when the share of income going to the top 10% and union membership. As union membership rose, it was about even. Everybody got in on the deal. When union membership plummeted, you see what happens. And the truth of the matter is, you all actually, and it's not hyperbole, built the middle class. You built the middle class. And you built all those in the middle class who never belonged to a union. The rights they have, the benefits they receive, were only because of the labor movement in the United States of America, because they knew companies would either give those rights and protections or you'd unionize them. And so you forced everything up. And the fact is that, without the ability to sit down with management and look across the table and be able to make demands is what you want, and having the power to be able to negotiate, there's nobody left out there to protect workers. It's a simple proposition. There used to be a balance. There used to be a basic balance. And so, the fact is that, companies expanded, as companies expanded benefits and workers' salaries went up and improved working conditions, Americans at work, all of them did better. And it used to be that at the end of World War II to the early 70s, workers, as they became more productive, there was a direct correlation between productivity and your wages. There was actually just a basic bargain. If you contributed to the profitability of an outfit, you got to share in the benefits. I mean, it was real. No, but by the way, isn't it kind of crazy we have to clap for that? Because that's what it used to be. And that was a bargain basically accepted by Democrats and Republicans since the New Deal. That was a basic bargain. We disagree on degree between the parties, but there was never this argument that somehow, back in when Reagan was President Reagan, I was serving at the time in the United States Senate. The average worker relative to the CEO made sometime, if I'm not mistaken, about 30 times as much as the average CEO. Now it's 300 times. What happened? What happened? How did that occur? Well, an awful lot of things changed. Some of it, they argue, is the folks in the other team argue it's all globalization. Globalization had a little bit to do with it. But the fact of the matter is, the rules got changed in a big way. Both fiscal policy and tax policy got changed. So a heck of a lot less went to be able to maintain a middle-class livelihood. And by the way, you've heard me say it before. Let me clear what I mean by middle class, what you build. You have all the economists will tell you middle class is a number. You know, it's 51,200 or 50,800. Middle class is not a number. It's a value set. It's a value set. It's been able to own your own home and not have to rent it. It's been able to send your kid to a park where they can be safe and you know they're going to come home safely. It's about being able to send them to high school. You know, if they do well, they get to college. If they get to college, you can pay for them to get there. And when mom or dad passes away, you can take the other parent in and hope your kids never have to take you in or take care of you. But it's shrinking. It's shrinking for a whole lot of reasons, but some of which we can control. A key part of that reason is to be able to sit down and actually bargain. Between 2003, if I'm not mistaken, and 2013, corporate America made $4.6 trillion. That's a good thing ordinarily. But what happened? 54% of that went to buying back their own stock. 37% went to dividends, leaving 9% for everything else. Expansion, research and development, salaries, raises. How'd that happen? Well, I'll tell you how it happened. The reason I took a look at it was because the president asked me to put together a proposal for how to make sure we had the best trained workforce in the world. So we did about 8 months of serious work. And one of the things I remember speaking with the Secretary of Labor about was, you know, it's kind of funny. Businesses aren't reinvesting in retraining workers. Why? How many times you hear, I don't have enough trained personnel? Well, in the old days, they'd actually go train personnel. But now they want the government to do it. I wondered why that was the case. Well, if you only got 9% left, and how'd that change? I'm going to make several broad points, and they're going to be much more detail when you talk to the president. First thing is that all of the alphabet agencies got changed. The SEC, you didn't used to be able to buy back your own stock like that. Along came Reagan, new appointments, and guess what? You could buy back all your stock you wanted. What happened? Increased concentration of wealth. Guess what? It's not some liberal think tank or Obama and Biden who think that's a problem. You have Standard & Poor's. You have the IMF saying the biggest concern about growth, economic growth, is concentration of wealth. If your manufacturer makes widgets and people don't have enough money to buy your widgets, you're not going to do that well. Wasn't just changing agencies. You saw what we've been fighting to do now with your help to make sure that we actually have the National Labor Relations Board actually wearing striped shirts now instead of black shirts. And we're making some progress. Also, in terms of the tax structure, we reward unearned income more than we ever have in our history, as opposed to earned income, a paycheck. We're in a situation now where the way in which we look at the tax structure, it's awful hard to figure out how the middle-class guy is getting a shot. So we've come up with a bunch of things. I'm not going to go through them all, but everything from making sure that we're going to triple the minimum child care tax credit for workers. By the way, you know one of the problems is women are dropping out of the labor market. It's not because they're good economists. They figure out If I'm making 40 grand a year and it's costing me 20 grand a year for my kid in a daycare, then it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Better for my kid if I stay home and try to get benefits, help raise my kid. I love it how they say that average people don't understand their own economic interest. So we want to make sure that we increase the child care credit. $500 tax credit for dual wage earners. They're getting hurt. They should get help. Dramatic expansion of overtime protection for 5 million workers. That should be across the board in every single solitary contract you used to be able to negotiate, and now you're not there to negotiate those contracts. There's only so much the president can do by the executive authority. Paid sick leave. What a radical idea. What a radical idea. Today we're backing the Wage Act coming out of Congress. Creates a private right of action for workers seeking back pay, liquidated damages. It establishes penalties. It's amazing how employers pay attention to penalties. They're good guys by and large, but if the system sends them in one direction, that's what they're likely to do.
Hello, Claire.
Whole businesses jointly liable for violations affecting workers supplied by another employer, such as temporary agencies.
And I'm sorry, how soon, Claire?
Where legal interference occurs preventing free and fair elections taking place, certify a union where the majority of employees signed an authorization card in the previous 12 months. But here, but the generic point I want to make, and I really do have to let you go or I'm going to get in trouble. And I know none of you wonder about where my sentiments lie. I was having lunch with Rich a month ago, Trumpka, and we talked about what do we have to do to think differently in 2015 as to how to revive collective bargaining. How do we do that? Some of you remember, because you're leaders of not just unions here, there's other good government groups here as well. But you remember my saying back in way back in the late 80s that business declared war on labor's house, and some of you thought I was exaggerating. Everything that's been done has been done to undermine the ability of workers to be able to be represented sitting across the table with an individual speaking for all those workers. Everything has been done. Think about it. All the initiatives that have taken place and been successful. In addition to that, we've lost the, I say we, I consider myself one of you. We've lost the initiative because they have captured the vocabulary. It no longer is the vocabulary we used to be able to use where when we said it, the public automatically said, oh, I get that, that's good. It's like everybody seeks to define by using the vocabulary long enough, like freedom of choice, or right to life, or right to choose, or it matters how it gets characterized. And one of the things I want to sit down with you, some of you privately with, is to talk about how do we change the debate and the language that results in a simple proposition, whatever you call it, collective bargaining, the ability to collectively sit on the other side of a table with an employer and make certain demands that they can choose to agree to or not agree to, and you have some power. That's what I hope comes out of what we're doing here today, what you've done this morning, and what we're talking about at a town hall. Because at the end of the day, that's the only pushback we had. I got in trouble, which is unusual for me, for speaking my mind when I said that labor is the outfit keeping the barbarians at the gate. Well, it was a bit of hyperbole to make a point. The weaker labor is, the worse off the American worker is. It's not because the other guys are bad. It's all about bargaining power. That's how the system's designed to work. And you got to be able to have a counter. And so one of the things that a lot of us are talking about, we'll continue to be talking about, is everything from safer workplaces to better training, the right to organize, to bring workers into the movement, and how we take on some of the special interests that, again, have been able to cloud and confuse the debate about what we're really all about and why it's so critically important to all Americans that there be a generic right to bargain and more people can get in on the game of being able to bargain. In addition to that, changing the tax code, which we're proposing to do, makes a big difference. In addition to that, one of the reasons why the economy grew and the middle class grew is we used to invest significantly in infrastructure. 3% of our economy at the period when it was working from World War II into the 70s. You take a look at the things. Why did it grow so well? Gene's forgotten more about this than I'm going to know. But we spend about 3% of our GDP in infrastructure. We spend about 1% now on infrastructure. Closing comment, guys. Your kids are going to hear the word insourcing a great deal more than our kids, and we heard outsourcing. And that's because America is better positioned than any nation in the world to be the leading economy of the 21st century for 4 or 5 reasons. One, we have now and we will continue to have for the foreseeable future the cheapest energy in the world. So you're going to build a factory, it costs you 3 to 5 times as much to build the same factory in terms of energy costs in the Far East. In Europe, it's 2 to 3 times more expensive. We have the greatest research universities in the world. No other country can remotely compete. That's why all the innovative stuff that happens here in America. We were bright enough back in the Eisenhower administration to decide not to put it all into government. We decided it should go to research universities. There's an incredible competition. We have the most agile venture capitalists in the world. We actually have a court system that protects intellectual property and adjudicates contracts fairly. And we have the most productive workers in the world. That's a fact. Workers in the United States are 3 times as productive as they are in China. That's not meant to criticize China. It's just a fact. It's who we are. And so, folks, we need 2 things. We need the best trained workforce in the world as these companies are. That's why they're coming home. We need the best trained workforce in the world. And we need the best infrastructure in the world. Society of Engineers thinks we need to invest over $3 trillion by 2022 just to stay even. Imagine the virtuous cycle that begins. It attracts businesses, it keeps businesses, it generates not minimum wage jobs, but good paying jobs, from surveyors making $90,000 and engineers making $120,000 to the guy laying the concrete making $60,000, $70,000. But in the meantime, while this is happening, the fight we have is we can't let the average American out of benefiting from this deal. That's why we need organized labor. That's why we need more collective bargaining. That's why we need more protection for workers' rights. Because it's coming, this resurgence. The question is, they shouldn't all be, figuratively speaking, median income workers with a minimum wage, even if it's a good minimum wage. So we're counting on you. We need your help. We need your suggestions. We need your muscle. We need to move. And if I don't move, I'll be demoted to Secretary of State or something like that. That's a joke. That's a joke. That's a joke. But thank you. Come on, let's go.
All right, now that was a live. That was Vice President Joe Biden discussing what Obama had just been discussing, their desire for a wage increase in the United States of America and wanting a fair playing field, wanting there to be more insourcing than outsourcing. And so that was interesting. I'm going to change my lower third now. So give me a second. But this video is care of WNYW out of New Jersey. This is a truck that it set on fire, and you can see a lot of people are stuck and a lot of people are stressed. You're also seeing a lot of cell phones documenting it, but a lot of people are stuck and a lot of people are stressed out in New Jersey on that freeway. Before I stray too far from the subject, I do want to finish out President Obama discussing the same topic. We interrupted him for live Joe Biden. Would you grab Sat 6 for me?
Roll on it?
Yeah. And right now I'm going to go ahead and cut straight to, yeah. Oh, is it? Okay.
Hillary had another poll. Hillary 2 first, Trump.
To fight for new protections. Fast food workers like Terrence are organizing for a raise with the support of the labor movement, and they've scored major victories in New York and LA. We've got the National Domestic Workers Alliance, an organization of caregivers and housekeepers and nannies who teamed up with Care.com to make sure these workers got the support that they deserve. It's called the Fair Care Pledge. And employers who take the pledge voluntarily agree to pay a fair wage and set a clear example and provide for paid time off. So we've got to look for new tools to bring people together, because in today's economy, it's not always going to be a situation where you just have one plant and one worker and one organizing drive. It's going to be workers who are not always on a single site, and we got to find ways to make sure that they can express their solidarity in new ways. And that's where technology actually can help in the same ways that in the past sometimes it's hindered. And then we need to engage businesses to lead the way as well, because there are businesses out there who are taking the high road and enlist their employees as partners in their shared future, and understand that if they're investing in their employees and making them partners, that they'll actually do better, not worse. They'll do better for shareholders, they'll do better for the community, they'll do better for America. So you got New Belgium Brewing that opens up its books and its strategic decision-making process to employees, and they also make really good beer. Kaiser Permanente works with 28 different unions to provide good pay and benefits, but also educational programs and avenues for employees to help improve quality and care throughout the company, which is why they're considered one of the premier health organizations in the country. Cumberland Farms, convenience stores connects employees and leadership through apps and online platforms. And that leads to more input from employees and higher retention rates and better service. So there are good things happening in America, but the question is, how do we scale up? How do we draw best practices and start changing mindsets? How do we help working folks and their families get ahead? So we're here today to think about where do we go next. We've got to ask ourselves, what does the next generation of American jobs look like? How do we make sure those jobs reward hard work? At a time of shrinking union membership, but a growing number of digital tools for organizing, how do we make sure everyone who works hard has a chance to get ahead? And how do we change public attitudes so that people who are frustrated feel empowered and not isolated? I think this is very important. We're entering into political season, and I won't make a big commentary on all of that. Obviously, I'm a proud Democrat, and I think we have better answers on a lot of these questions. But I will say this: the fear, the apprehension that can express itself in all kinds of ways. Anti-immigration sentiment, resentment towards people who don't look exactly like you do. Some of the anger that it can express itself in not very productive economic policies. A lot of that is fed by just people feeling anxious about their futures and feeling alone and feeling like they've got no control and that nobody's listening. And so part of what we've got to do is to tap into people who are frustrated about their job paying so little, people who are frustrated about industries that used to be in their town leaving, rightly frustrated about how hard it is to save for retirement, rightly frustrated about the fact that they can be replaced at any time with very little protections, and make sure that they understand there's a positive way to deal with these issues that will actually produce and deliver change and make things better, not just for them, but for all workers. We've got to help people feel connected and not isolated. And hopeful, not just fearful. And that requires that we do some self-examination about how we approach these problems. And I'll be honest with you. I mean, I've had conversations with our union leadership about this. You've got a whole millennial generation who knows they're not getting a good deal in the workplace, but don't consider joining unions, in part because the laws have been set up to make it so hard to unionize, but also in part because they don't live in a town where everybody's working in the same plant, and there's a tradition of going to the assembly hall, and they haven't seen their parents or grandparents for generations participating and joining in same ways. And they connect, but they connect in different ways, and we've got to adapt to that. Try to find new ways of bringing people in. So that's why you're all here today, to come up with some answers. I've got ideas, but this is a hard problem, and it's going to require creativity and effort from all of us. And we've got leaders from labor, business, and government. We've got some of the brightest minds in organizing and economics. And we've got folks like Terrence and his mom, Joanne, some of the hardest working Americans in the country. So you are in charge for the day. I'm eager to hear your ideas and your solutions. I know there are going to be some breakout sessions. I'm going to come back and have a town hall and hopefully be able to hear some of the discussion that's been taking place. But I do want to start the discussion by just offering a set of common sense principles for what it means to work in America. First, if you work hard in America, you should earn enough money to support your family. And if you're working 2 jobs like Terrence, then your family should never have to go to bed hungry. Second, if you work hard in America, you should earn decent benefits. And that means access to the 2 bedrock sources of lifelong security, and that is affordable health coverage and retirement savings. Third, if you work hard in America, you should have the right to a safe workplace. And if you get hurt on the job or become disabled or unemployed, you should still be able to keep food on the table. Fourth, if you work hard in America, you should be able to take care of those you love, which means having sick leave and parental leave and affordable child care and predictable schedules that give your family some stability. Fifth, if you work hard in America, you should have a pathway to the education and training you need to grow your skills and earn raises and promotions and the chance to get ahead. And finally, if you work hard in America, you should have the freedom to decide for yourself without fear or interference if you want to join with others to advocate for yourself in the workplace, whether that's through a union or any other means. And these are core principles that help build this country. So I'm sure there are going to be a lot of ideas coming out of these discussions, but these are the guideposts that we need to stay focused on. Good pay, benefits, workplace safety, work-family balance, skills training, the freedom to organize. That's what unions secure for us. It's what we have to secure for the next generation of workers. We've done a lot of work on these issues, extending overtime protections, helping workers collect fair pay that they've earned, ensuring paid sick leave for federal contractors. 17 states and 30 cities and counties so far have answered my call to raise the minimum wage. There are few policies that have done more to provide Americans with financial security than Obamacare, because insurance plans on the new federal marketplace are affordable and portable. Folks now have the power and peace of mind to switch jobs or start a new business or make a living in the on-demand economy without worrying about whether they're going to get sick. So we're going to continue to do everything in our power to help working families get ahead. And we're going to still have to worry about short-term politics even as we try to shift long-term perspectives here. Congress has to do its job right now and pass a budget that strengthens protections for America's workers and invests in the education and job training that prepares our workforce for the future. And they need to strengthen paid leave and expanded child care and raise the minimum wage for Americans across this country. They should pass the Wage Act, a bill that cracks down on employers who violate labor laws and that makes it easier for workers to organize. And I'll end on this point. You can't wait for Congress. I'm just saying. We've got incredible champions like Nancy Pelosi and the members of Congress who are here, but this is a fight on the ground. We've got to change an attitude and mindset that says there's nothing we can do, or giving workers more voice means inefficiency and we won't be competitive, or suggest that there's a contradiction between economic growth and decent wages, or suggest that we should have a race to the bottom with other countries, or suggest that somehow the current arrangements in which a growing amount of what we produce in this country going to the top 0.001% is in the natural order of things and is somehow fair and just. Those are attitudes that we have to change. And that's going to happen on the ground. And that will then reflect itself in politics. And that will reflect itself in new laws being passed. But we've got to give people examples and models and work where we can to make a difference where we can, and that will give people confidence and hope and can start triggering the kind of broader movement that channels people's anxieties and frustrations in ways that are good for our future. So I want to hear from you about the challenges you're facing right now, the successes you've earned, the ideas you have to strengthen workers' voices across the country. I will come back later this afternoon. I don't expect you to come up with all the answers today, but I do want to make sure we're asking the right questions and that we produce a set of relationships and work streams to really get this thing going. If we do that, then we're going to be able to keep America a place where when you work hard, you can get ahead, and more importantly, you can see your kids and your grandkids get ahead. All right? Thanks, everybody. I'll see you this afternoon. Thank you. See you guys later. All right? Thank you.
All right, everyone, that was the conclusion of Obama talking about potential wage increases here in the United States. We are going to go ahead and wrap the show right now because we have our afternoon editorial meeting that I need to jump in. But we will be back at 2:30, I believe, unless otherwise noted, and then we might be back at 2. But since Samia is not here today, I don't know what our actual schedule is going to be for the show, so I apologize. But I know we're going to be back this afternoon for you, and we already know there's a 6:30 to 9 program. That is my favorite because it's mine. But I will see you again this afternoon with Mikey. Mike's going to kick it off. Thank you so much for spending your morning with us, and I will talk to you very shortly.